I'd like to call this meeting to order. Be it resolved, the Board of Supervisors hereby enters into closed meeting for the purpose of discussing the following. Under Section 2.2-3711, discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for public purpose, or for the disposition of publicly held real property where a discussion in open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position of the negotiating strategy of the public body. 1. Raleigh Public Safety Site. 2. Former Blacksburg High School. 3. Former Blacksburg Middle School. Consultation with legal counsel and briefings from staff members or consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation where such consultation or briefing in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body, and consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring provision of legal advice by such counsel. Public Safety Building, Mountain Valley Charitable Foundation, Charlesville Middle School Athletic Facilities, Gallows Dead Oak Hollow. Yeah, Gallows now. Next would be discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, discipline, or resignation of specific officers, appointees, or employees of any public body. And under that paragraph would be personnel. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second to go into closed meeting. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
We're in closed meeting. Closed session. Need a motion to go out of closed meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to go out of closed meeting. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Certification of closed meeting. Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. Whereas Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County, Virginia, hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting, to which this certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in a motion conveying the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the board. Motion?
Motion.
Yeah.
I have a motion and a second for certification of a closed meeting. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
The next two items on our agenda is invocation, where we observed a moment of silence to reflect on the business at hand, and after we observe that moment of silence, we'll be led in the pledge by Mr. Meadows, our county administrator.
Let us pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Next item is public hearings, and subject A, the following public hearing was advertised pursuant to law in the New River Valley section of the Roanoke Times on August 28th and September 4th of 2015. And it is rezoning request Shaw Development LLC.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As you stated, we're looking at a rezoning request for Shaw Development. The site is located at 1501 Tango Lane. You're probably very familiar with it, as it is the old former Elliston Lafayette Elementary School site located in the western portion of the county in the Shawsville Magisterial District. They have requested to rezone from multifamily residential to residential R3 compact development option. That means they can utilize a smaller lot size so they can get more lots in. However, they do have to provide certain amenities, which they have shown on their plat. This is the tax map and the zoning map for the property. This is the site subject here, so you can't see the zoning layer underneath it, but it is RM1. Surrounding zoning is agriculture A1. General business is the orange. Residential R3 is yellow. We have 2 little spots. And then residential R2 is also in the area. As you well know, this property was sold at auction in July of 2013 and rezoned in October of 2013 to multifamily residential. At the time, they had proposed up to 64 townhomes with a private street network, trails, and public water and sewer. Since then, they have changed their plan a little bit due to market conditions, and they also think that this is a better fit for the neighborhood and the surrounding residences. They are currently requesting 38 single-family dwellings. They are still requesting private streets, which would be approved upon the approval of this rezoning request as part of the concept plan. Sidewalks and connection to future trails, and also public water and sewer. This is the new proposed plan. It does have a loop road network that would be private, maintained by a homeowners association or by a property management company. They actually have shown 37 lots on their plan. We allowed a little buffer of 38. This area you will see here, we are going to talk about in a little bit, as it is still owned by VDOT. However, they are going through the process of obtaining that property from VDOT. It's been a lengthy process and has not been solved yet, but they are well on the way, I do believe. This is also the old Route 460, and we talked about this at the last request as well. They still want to request abandonment of this for this to be vacated. They will provide a turnaround cul-de-sac that is acceptable to VDOT and will allow adequate bus turnaround. Also, when that is abandoned, they have proposed to provide an easement across that for the Vital Trail. The site lies in an area of village expansion. It's further defined as mixed use in our Elliston Lafayette Village Plan. Mixed use development allows for industrial, commercial, residential, basically whatever the infrastructure would support. So our village plan outlines that we want to focus growth where it can be supported by infrastructure and encourage the development of a broad range of housing. And we want to encourage development of inter and interconnected streets and implement the trail networks. The Lafayette Route 11460 corridor plan also applies to this property. It discusses how landscaping for this area should be ornamental because it is a gateway area, and it further states that new buildings should be compatible. They have left in the proffer that the housing will be a mixture of materials such as brick, vinyl, so it won't be just your standard cookie cutter, every house looks the same necessarily. The Vital Plan also discusses a portion of the proposed trail network, which borders along Old Route 460 and across the bridge to Hell's Mobile Home Park. So transportation issues, it does have a right in, right out access only on Route 11 460. On Old Route 460, it also has another entrance. The abandonment of Tango Lane is currently underway. I believe that is actually on your agenda tonight. And then there is the potential for a portion of 460 to be, Old Route 460 to be abandoned. Site will be served by public water and sewer. School impact, it's the Eastern Montgomery Strand. They're expecting about 21 children or 2 students per grade, which is less than what was anticipated with the former request. They have proffered to provide a bus shelter for those children. Since the streets are private, the school buses will not be able to go through the subdivision. Emergency Services has requested a water flow study prior to final site plan approval. That will be something that staff will will get, because the emergency services director will have to review that site plan before we approve it. We have talked to the PSA, and they have been doing water flow studies in that area, and they said we should be able to utilize the data that they are currently gathering. The owner has also proposed the installation of 2 new fire hydrants, which should enhance fire safety in that area. So the staff has determined that the project qualifies for rezoning to R3 compact. Single-family dwellings are less significant of change in land use, even more less significant than the prior townhomes. The proffers do address most of the issues that we've discussed, the bus shelter, connection to the proposed trail system. They have also proffered to provide sidewalks, a tot lot, and a walking path to be maintained by a homeowners association. And they have proffered to maintain a single row of screening trees along the adjoining residential property lines. This is not required by our ordinance because of the surrounding zoning. So they are not required to provide a buffer at all, but they have chosen to do that because they feel like the smaller lot sizes don't necessarily match up with the larger lot sizes on the other side, so it would make it more attractive to the other surrounding citizens. The landscaping in front is in conformance with the Lafayette Corridor Plan. So the Planning Commission met on September 9th, and they recommended unanimously to approve the request. We had 2 members absent, Mr. Kratz and Mr. Miller. And with that, I will take any questions from you prior to turning it over to the applicant.
Board members, do we have any questions? Mr.
Yeah, 2 brief questions, just informational, really. Where precisely would the bus shelter be located?
The exact location has not been determined yet, because we want to be sure to consult with the schools. We're thinking it's going to be on old Route 460, just because of the busyness on Route 11 460.
Okay, all right. And then, is there a reasoning behind the private road designation internally?
I will let them answer that. I think part of that has to do with VDOT maintenance through there, the width of the road, and being able to fit the lots in. But I will defer to Mr. Neal for that.
Okay.
Just got a couple.
Okay.
Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, I've got just something in general, and that is from the last we knew about Federal Mobile, and they were going to come back that road and take a left and go down to build their
You're
No.
thinking intermodal. not-
Yeah.
intermodal.
You sort of lost me.
I can do that in a hurry. Do myself. But I'd like to know, where is the railroad in this kitty? Because the last that we talked to them, you could come straight across that road, go to the back, turn left, and you're already in property that the railroad owns. So, I'd like to know where that's at, and where it's going, where it's coming from or going to, or.
I will be honest, I have not received any updates on intermodal, so I'm not sure. Marty, do you know?
No, I haven't heard anything.
Yes, I have not heard any updates on
My only thing
intermodal.
about it is that I don't want them to have this and then come up and need to come down the highway with their big trucks and go in and then on down, if they ever decide to do that, which I hope they don't. But I think it's something that we need to know before.
Gary, I don't think that the road abandonment is before us or on this zoning. It's something that they may talk about in the future, because you may remember from the last time when hash development came before us, there was some complaints from the neighbors saying folks were coming across that bridge that they didn't like them walking through. It wasn't necessarily a good situation. I don't think that...
That's in the opposite direction of where I'm talking about.
Well,
Correct.
and so I don't think that this project should interconnect with the intermodal yard. I don't.
It's not with the intermodal yard, it's with the street in which it takes to get there.
Okay.
And that is a fact.
There's two red
That's
lines, aren't there?
Okay. Is it some other questions or comments?
I just got a
Down
couple.
this way.
Okay.
Isn't this the railroad?
Mr. King?
What size roads are they, what size roads are they
Right, yes.
proposing to put in this subdivision? I mean, is it gonna be like VDOT approved?
We require that private streets be built to state standards, state subdivision street standards. So I would assume 40 foot, or you can answer that. John is going to take that one for you.
All right.
They are going to install sidewalk, curb and gutter.
My concern is fire trucks.
Yes, and Mr. Turner did say that this was a much better plan for fire apparatus than the previous townhome plan, because the previous townhome plan had some dead ends with turnarounds, hammerhead turnarounds, and so he likes this because it's more of a loop. So he said it's going to be much easier fire access than the previous plan.
I'm not sure. Sorry.
Okay. You said it.
And one more thing, are they planning on putting the fire hydrants in before a house is actually built?
I do, let me see when that is supposed to go. I think we had everything set that it had to be installed before the 8th certificate of occupancy. Hydrants will be installed prior to the completion and sale of homes to ensure compliance with state and local.
Any homes?
Yes.
Okay.
Fire code requirements.
Thank you.
So the hydrants would be within this development, right?
Yes.
Okay. And it's a private development? Okay. But our PSA will have authority to go in and to ensure the water pressure. What happens is all the fire plugs, we know what water pressure is on them. And I guess
Right.
would they have the authority to go in to check the water pressure on them?
Yes, I'm sure that they will have, I'm sure Mr. Brunk will require the proper easements and all of that once they do the public water and sewer plans.
Okay. Any more questions before she takes her seat? And I guess the agent, Mr. Neal. He's the agent if we have some questions for him. He's up.
So
Okay.
thank you all for your time. I appreciate it. My name is John Neal. I'm an engineer with Gay and Neal here in Christiansburg. Tom Rutledge with Shaw Development is here tonight as well, directly representing the owner. I really can't add a whole lot more to what Bree said. I think we've been working through this right-of-way abandonment process on the front, on 460, new 460, and going through the acquisition of that right-of-way, and it has taken an extremely long time working with VDOT on their process. And we've kind of been fortunate in that market conditions have changed and the economy's gotten a little bit better, and so our clients saw an advantage to providing some single-family housing that they couldn't have necessarily have provided 2 years ago with the way things stood. So we're trying to look at that as a little bit of a blessing for creating a better project. So that's where we stand today. We're at the final stages of acquiring that right-of-way at the front of new 460, so to speak. And we would like to pursue vacation of the old right-of-way for our cul-de-sac. I'm going to go back just a second. Here's this part. This part, but the part that's taken the last 2 years has been along the frontage right here. We think this is a better plan, and we'd like to pursue it with this rezoning. I won't get into the rest of the details unless you'd like to, but I want to answer the questions that came up. Mr. Gabriel, the bus stop location, where we anticipate it is back in this area here with old 460, but we're kind of marrying several interests, one being VDOT, working with them on the right-of-way vacation, the other being the cul-de-sac and how that goes, as well as the school system, as well as our clients. So kind of pulling all those things together, that's one of the reasons we didn't pick a very specific location for the bus stop. We're trying to make all those work together.
But it won't be internal.
No, sir. No, sir. Because the buses for the Montgomery County Public Schools will not travel on non-public streets. So they would come to that VDOT cul-de-sac and turn around. Our bus stop will be situated so that the kids will be adjacent to it and can get on the bus there at the turn. And then also the streets being private. One of the reasons for that was we're looking for more of a neighborhood feel, so we don't have the full width of right-of-way that VDOT would require for a public right-of-way. We're able to bring the houses a little closer to the street and get more of a single-family neighborhood feel, that new traditional type of development. Mr. Creed, from an intermodal standpoint, I'll be honest with you, we haven't heard anything from the railroad, and we haven't contacted them either. We're going forward with our development the way that we see it progressing and what we'd like to develop. I do not think this area that we're proposing to be vacated would ever be accessed by the right-of-way from my understanding of where the intermodal is proposed. But you all may know better than I on that subject.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I said there a while ago is fact. It ain't no guesswork. They come off the road and come all the way to the back and take a left and go down and come on to the intermodal.
Would they not come down 603 and go straight across old Route 460 and then take the left?
I certainly hope not. You're going to have a lot of wrecks you do that. We've fought that for a long time.
I just don't know.
They can't, that's the reason the new road is scheduled to be up in front of those, right above those little brick houses that are sitting there. And then they come right straight across the road from there.
We certainly haven't been in contact with them and are not planning on being. We would like to move forward with our project as it stands. Mr. King, with regard to the street width, we're proposing a 30-foot wide street and work with the county staff and Mr. Turner as far as fire access. Like Bree said, one of the things with the loop road, Mr. Turner was in favor of that versus the original development that we had with the townhouses. The fire hydrants, they would go in with the public water and sewer and would be made live when the public water and sewer is. The first house that has to have public water to it with a water meter, the fire hydrants would be live at that time when someone moved in. So there's no question there. And then Mr. Brown, fire and PSA access, they would have access over all the streets and through their easements for both the water and sewer on the streets.
Okay.
And snow removal will be the homeowners association paying someone or having someone, so that would be done, so you wouldn't have any problem with the emergency vehicles if you...
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. It'd be all private stormwater management facility. We'd have to have a homeowner association to own and maintain that with the new water quantity and quality requirements, as well as our open space and recreation area for the playground, kind of central to the community. So all those things would be maintained by the homeowner association.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you all for your
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, you. Okay.
John, if you could go back, I would just like to give, go back to the overall, maybe the zone map right here. Mr. Creed, with the new, the widening of North Fork Road coming across, does it show in there, John?
That is right here.
Right. Where is Mr. Creed talking about? Because the intermodal is...
Come right straight on across that road. That's your highway. Comes right to the purple, gets to it. When you get to the purple again, you take a left. And that goes down...
Right.
Down to Old Green Hill.
The Old Green Hill. And that's where they have said all along that they're going to put it. Now, whether they'll ever put it anywhere, I don't know. But...
Right. But I guess what I just want to make sure, Mr. Creed, that I understand, and then also is that there's North Fork coming across, and then we come across US 11 and 460 and take a left and come back. So the right-of-way that we are abandoning is here and here, which shouldn't affect anything they do further to the east from us.
The only thing it would affect is if they put the road in. If they did put the road in, then all of these stops for kids to get on and off and this type thing, all of that has kind of gone up into a flame when you want, if indeed they do that.
Right, but again, I just want to point out that, okay, if they come across 11 and 460 on North Fork, they come to here and they take a left to go to their side. Our cul-de-sac or hammerhead turnaround or bus shelter would be way up, and I couldn't tell you a footage. I'm going to guess 400 or 500 feet up from that intersection. So you need whatever turnaround we decide design, whether VDOT approves a hammerhead, VDOT approves a cul-de-sac.
I don't think you went up there quite far enough. You know, just that single, that next, the one that comes out of the next one down, that right there is
It's on.
what they say they're going to use.
Right, and then they're going this way.
Yeah, and they go right down and go across
See,
there.
our cul-de-sac or our turnaround would be up here.
I'm hoping you could do something and they not never show back up in the.
Got some
Right.
pretty spots.
But, you
I
know,
don't even know what that is.
I don't know that that's going to happen.
Right. I just hope that we can keep the children to the old 460 where there is no traffic at the dead end road, as opposed to out front along.
See, I don't know where it
That's
is.
460. That's our intention.
It can't be, I don't think so.
Well,
I've
they've
been
got
through the whole thing.
businesses sitting right across the street there from them. You know, the oil and that type thing.
Right. But I would venture to guess that those traffic generation would be 20 trips per day versus.
Are very minimal compared to the traffic on 460,
Right.
main 460.
Yeah, as far as the fuel. But then I want somebody to say, hey, we're not going, the railroad is not coming. This is how it's going to be, and I'd be happy.
I'll turn that back over to Mr. Neal.
But how are you going to do that?
I can't tell you that the railroad isn't coming, sir, but we do our best to be away from them as much as humanly possible.
Yeah.
Any more? Okay,
One more
Tom.
thing. What,
Yes, sir.
what do you propose if you do that turnaround? What do you propose going to happen on the other side of the road, on the other side of the track?
Oh, let me make sure I know where you're talking about. So we have, you mean over here?
Right.
Over here? That bridge is closed, and so there's no traffic that goes across, no vehicular traffic at all that goes across it now.
None can go across it.
There's none that absolutely goes across it. There is right now pedestrian traffic that
Yeah.
kind of, I think, maybe, illegally goes across it. I don't think it's open
No, totally.
for trails.
Yeah.
Say
That's
that.
right. They want
So
you to do that.
technically, there's no pedestrian traffic supposed to be going across it now. I think
Right.
people do use it.
Yeah.
And the county's vital plan, which is kind of more of an interconnectivity trail, would come back and use that at some point in the future. And we're allowing for, if we are able to vacate that right of way, that we would turn around and dedicate an easement for that vital trail if and when it comes back.
Sounds right. Yeah.
But there's no vehicular traffic that goes across the railroad track and onto the other side.
Thank you.
Because they should be on.
Okay, now we'll open it to public comment. Had two people signed up, but I think they've already spoken. Okay. Now we'll open it up to those who didn't get an opportunity to sign up. And if you do want to speak on this public hearing, please come to the podium, state your name and address. You have 5 minutes and direct all your comments to the board. Seeing no one coming forward, we will close the public hearing. Our next public hearing is ordinance amending Chapter 10, Sections 10-24, 10-25, 10-26, 10-32.1, 10-35, and 10-41, residential beekeeping.
Good evening. We received this as a referral from the Board of Supervisors after they had received a letter from the New River Valley Beekeeping Association. The Planning Commission discussed it for a couple of months, and then they decided to form a subcommittee to look into it a little further. So we had a subcommittee meeting May 12th. It consisted of staff, citizens beekeepers, Planning Commission members, and we discussed a wide variety of things, including where bees were allowed currently in our agricultural and rural residential zoning districts, our existing code language related to that, and then we discussed whether or not we should allow bees in residential zoning districts. And basically, the subcommittee come up with several parameters, and they said that they thought that they should be allowed in residential zoning districts and that the Planning Commission should look into that. So the Planning Commission discussed it for 2 more months, and we had several different versions of the ordinance before we agreed to this one. that we are presenting to you today. We were directed to draft an ordinance, consider setbacks, consider water supply requirements, and no retail uses on the property, of course. Water supply requirements are related to so the bees don't go off to get water out of someone's pool that's in the next door, or bird baths, that type of thing. So that would keep them more localized and they don't have to wander as far. So our existing beekeeping, this map is a little hard to see at this scale because it's huge. It's the county map, it's the zoning map. But basically everything in white, we allow beekeeping now as agricultural use. There are a couple of small, like bright green areas that we would also allow that. That's rural residential, and we do allow small scale agriculture there. Anything else that's colored, we would not allow bees currently. So they would not be allowed in those districts. So our proposed ordinance amendments. We did realize that although we allow bees in agricultural, we did not define them as an animal unit for small scale agricultural, which is what applies to our rural residential. So we went and we looked at that and we decided to allow 2 beehives to equal 1 animal unit. In small scale agriculture, we allow 3 animal units per acre. So if you had an acre zoned rural residential, you would be allowed 6 beehives with this amendment. And then we moved forward with residential beekeeping in our residential zoning districts. We gave it a definition, basically said it had to be related to the primary use of a single family residence. We didn't want residential properties that had nothing on them to have beehives and there not be an owner there or someone there that could look after them and the surroundings. And then we added the use to each one of our residential districts, which is why you had all of those sections to read off. And we made it all supplemental to the regulations in 1041-19, which is urban agriculture, and that's also where we have our residential chicken keeping. So the supplemental regulations that we came up with is you could have 2 hives per half acre. You do have to have at least a half acre to have bees. And then you can have an equal number of nucleus hives, which I learned are hives that when your hive gets too large, you have to break it out so it doesn't swarm. And then with that hive, they allow it to build and they can then sell it or relocate it. Or if they're still under their minimum amount of hives, they can keep it. We did say it should be in the rear yard only. Most of our accessory structures, especially in residential zoning districts, we want in the rear yard, not necessarily in the front near the street. 25-foot setback, a water source within 50 feet, and then personal use and enjoyment. That means you can't have a commercial honey business. You can't have people come into the property to buy honey, honeycomb, bees, that type of thing. We strictly want it as a hobby. Now they can take their honey if they have excess and sell it at like a farmer's market or something like that, but we don't want people coming to the property and it turn into a commercial business. We do have the zoning permit is required. That is required for almost any accessory use in the county. What would be required of that is they would need to submit a site plan showing where their hives were located so we could verify it did meet the 25-foot setback. They would also have to show that they had a water source, and they would have to tell us how many hives. We would make sure they had enough acreage for the number of hives that they would like to have, and $10, and they have a permit. That does a couple of things. One, puts it on record with us, so if I get a call from the next door neighbor and they're calling dairy saying, he just did put hives out here, can he have hives? We can go pull the permit and say, this is how many he's supposed to have, this is where it's supposed to be located, and so then if they're saying something's different, we can then go out and investigate that. Or a lot of times what they'll say is, oh, okay, I just wanted to make sure he was okay and he had his permit. So it's a double situation. But those are the supplemental regulations that we had come up with, and that is the ordinance that you have before you. The Planning Commission discussed it very lengthy again, and they did all vote to recommend the ordinance be amended. We had 2 absent, Mr. Katz and Mr. Miller. And with that, I will take any questions from you. If there is a question I cannot answer, I do have members here from the New River Valley Beekeeping Association, and I'm sure they can help you. So,
Mr. Tuck.
I know the answers to this, but when an average citizen looks up and says, oh, I've got to come up with a site plan, Are you
Right.
saying you have to go get an engineer, or you're just saying you can do a hand sketch and to comply with setback?
Exactly. Normally what we do is if they don't have a survey plat with them when they come into the office, we'll just print out an aerial photo on the GIS. We'll draw a box where the hives are. They'll estimate how far off the property lines it is. We'll draw that in. We can draw in their little water source, and that just gets scanned in with the zoning permit. So we don't require for them to pay to have an engineer. We don't even require them to go get the plat out of the clerk's office if there is one on record. If they don't have it with them, we use the GIS.
And then as far as the fee is concerned, is it the $500 fee that we hear about occasionally, or is it a different?
It is $10.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. King.
Couple of things. One concern is if people's allergic to bees.
Right. And we had some discussion on this, and I think the best person to answer those questions is probably going to be Mr. Hill with the Beekeepers Association. He is here this evening. Not only is he a beekeeper, he is allergic to bees. So he has a lot of knowledge there. So I'm going to let him handle that question.
Okay.
And one more thing, what I talked to you about earlier about the spots. I talked to a beekeeper, and he told me the reason the vehicles had spots on is because he had so many bees in that one area.
Okay.
It was like a dog. You know, if you got a dog in the yard, he goes to your neighbors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and hopefully limiting the number of hives on that half acre will help alleviate some of those issues.
Now you're talking about 2 hives per half acre.
Yes.
If I got an acre, I can put 4 hives on 1/2 acre, on a half acre lot, right? I don't have to split them up.
Correct. If you have a lot that is an acre, then you would be allowed to have 4 hives. But you wouldn't have to have 2 hives on this side and 2 hives on this side. You could put them together.
So if I got 10 acres, I can put all my bees in one area.
As long as it's one contiguous property. 10 acres, one contiguous property.
Well, that might be where you come away with them bees putting spots on people's vehicles.
It could be, and normally if you have 10 acres, normal situation, I know there are some exceptions, but most of the time you would be zoned agriculture, and you're gonna fall under that small scale agriculture, which is 3 units per acre, up to 10. So
Okay.
you could have a lot more bees in agriculture.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Boy, I didn't know honey could be this complicated.
I did not either.
Any other questions?
But he's going to talk about it, right?
Okay, you said, we'll bring Mr. Hill up since we have some questions. It's Mr. James Hill.
Hi, I'm James Hill, 3665 Old Sourwood Road in Pilot. I noticed on the website that I could provide a handout, providing a dozen copies to be distributed to you. And yes, I frequently tell the joke that the fact that I, who am allergic to bee stings, is proof positive that no IQ test is required to become a beekeeper. But it was in my family. My mother was raised down in Scott County, Virginia, and my grandfather had hives, and we always had a big jar of honey when I was growing up. And when we moved down here after 30 years in Alaska and retired here, and we got the farm that my mother and father bought out in Pilot, it was my chance to become a beekeeper. And so that's that short answer there. Would you like me to answer your questions first, or shall I just?
Just whatever you want.
Yeah, I think if you go through your presentation, you might
Yes,
answer
please.
the questions that we
Well,
have to ask.
my presentation doesn't exactly have those answers, but I'm happy to provide them. The New River Valley Beekeepers Association, and I have this handout, so I'm going to be following that closely, and you can read it at your leisure. We proposed the amendment to allow beekeeping in the residential zones of the county. In fact, a little over a year ago, it came as quite a surprise to us that it wasn't legal. Our objective was to make beekeeping legal in the residential zones of the county and provide a framework of common sense rules to address both the concerns of the neighbors and the needs of the beekeepers. When I drafted our proposal, I borrowed heavily from the existing ordinance in Roanoke, which has had legal beekeeping for many years, and which have been working well. I've made actual inquiries with the planning and environmental quality, and within the memory of staff there, which goes back in some cases well over 20 years, they've not had any problems, any complaints in Roanoke. The amendments that we proposed were quite a bit different than what you have in front of you. The Planning Commission made modifications, and as I say in our handout, we appreciate the positive attitude that the Planning Commission has shown. Our short answer is we urge you to adopt these amendments without imposing any more restrictive provisions. And we do, however, persist in believing that some of the restrictions that they've placed in the amendment are more restrictive than necessary to protect neighbors. In particular, we believe that the 25-foot setback is greater than necessary. The 10-foot setback in the Roanoke Amendment seems to be working well. As I said, they've had no complaints. I, who am allergic to bees, without lingering in front of the hives, I will walk in front of my hives to, about 15 feet or so, and without being stung. Because generally speaking, if you're not messing with them, they're not defensive. If we understand that there are concerns about proximity for neighbors, and so we ask if you think 10 feet is too small, we ask you to consider 15 or 20 feet rather than 25 feet. And lastly, the provision for zoning permit, I kind of understand where Ms. Hopkins is coming from, but we question whether that's really necessary. Now, going to your question, Mr. King. I guess, what is the question? Yeah, some people are allergic.
Yeah, well, the neighbors may be concerned if they're allergic to it.
Well, as someone who is allergic, and I mean formally, medically diagnosed, having gone through the tests as allergic, my first question is, my comment is, a lot of people get a bee sting and they swell locally and they say, I'm allergic. That's not allergic. I don't want to minimize that, but I believe the density restriction of 2 hives per half acre, reducing the number of hives to a proportion, in proportion with the size of the lot, and the setbacks, which, as I say, we believe 25 is too much, but 15 or 20 is plenty. Bees, when they come out, they spread out. They're going to do their thing, and they're not defensive once they get away from the hive. So the risk to someone who's allergic is minimal. Secondly, bees are all over, as are yellow jackets, and around here 2 species of hornets and various species of wasps, and I'm allergic to all 5. You cannot, I don't want to minimize the concern, but you can't protect people from every stinging insect. And beekeepers and beehives, kept beehives, are not to blame for all the stings that people get. We get calls at the New River Valley Beekeepers Association for people who have colonies in their homes, asking them to be removed or in their trees or whatever. And a pretty significant proportion of those calls, when a volunteer beekeeper goes to get that colony out, he discovers it's not honeybees at all, it's yellow jackets. I guess I would ask you to consider those factors in your evaluation of this amendment. It ain't necessarily bees. Do you have any other questions on that?
Any more? The only comment that I have about the I guess probably from here to that podium there is probably 10, 11 feet. You got a beehive sitting there, and I got to ride.
It's more than 10 feet.
Okay, it's more than 10 feet. But if I come by with a mower on my property, that close to the property line, and there's a swarm of bees in that beehive, and I come by with my mower, it's going to, those bees are going to intimidate me because I think they're going to sting me. So I may not agree with the 10 feet, but 25 feet would sure make me feel more comfortable on my property line cutting versus 10 feet in the bees.
I understand that. I would say the distance between you and me right now is at least 15 feet. And I just mowed in front of my beehives the other day to clear the area for an electric fence that I'm having to put in because I've lost 3 colonies in the last week to a black bear. But that's another subject. But I drove my mower in front of the hives probably about half the distance between you and me and had no problem at all. And this is with a tractor pulling a pull-behind motor with its own motor, creating a lot of noise. And once again, as I say, if the bees don't perceive you as a threat to their colony, you're not messing with the box, they're really not so defensive. They're mainly interested in going to get their nectar and pollen and coming back to the hive. And it'd be pretty rare occasion that would be a problem. And as I say, fully allergic. And by the way, I wasn't wearing a bee suit when I did that mowing. Okay, I know if I don't go out there and stand right in front of a hive for an extended period of time, I'm really not in hazard.
But you know that, and I don't. I know when they sting, but I know when they sting, they hurt. And so, in the interest of other citizens who may be close to a beekeeper, I like the 25 feet versus the 10. And I think a lot of the citizens not familiar with bees that has been stung would probably want 2,500 feet. But that's here or there, okay?
Of course, opinions vary, and we're here to express ours, of course.
Okay, we respect. I respect your opinion.
And I understand.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Hill. Jerry Borger? Borger? Yeah.
Again, my name is Jerry Borger. Tonight I wish it were Daniel Webster. I am a 2-year past president in the River Valley Beekeepers Association. Mr. Brown made a comment earlier, there's an awful lot to know about honey. Should any of you want to learn more about honey or bees, I also run our beginning beekeepers class. So happy to help you out there. I wanted first to recognize and acknowledge and give thanks to you good folks for your service to the community, for the extra hours you're putting in rather than being home with the feet up relaxing tonight, and for the consideration you give in this matter. There is one area that I would like to address, and that is the registration requirement, the permit fee. Ms. Hopkins has given an explanation of why it's there, that it was modeled after the chickens, and you heard Mr. Hill say that Roanoke, who's had less conservative ordinance has not had any complaints at all. And you might respond and say, yeah, but this isn't Roanoke. And I could say, yes, but these aren't chickens. These are a different entity, and across the country, we've had a decline. Perhaps you've heard colony collapse disorder, varroa mites, tracheal mites, such that beekeeping is not like it was for our grandfathers. There are more backyard beekeepers now. That's a good thing because there aren't nearly as many feral colonies as there used to be. They have been, not completely, but to a large extent, they're gone, probably at the 90% level. I also have 28 years in the Air Force, so I have an interest in government, and that makes me say if there's a good reason for something, we ought to have that. The government oversight definitely has its place. On the other hand, if it doesn't have a place, why do we need it there? And so I would say this permit fee kind of is a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. Roanoke hasn't had a problem. We've had one instance here where someone called in, and that's what started the whole thing. Bees too close, somebody's allergic. As Mr. Hill explained, everybody who says they're allergic aren't. It's more like 1% of the population, and then it may be to something completely different than honeybees. But like him, I don't want to minimize the problem. A call took care of it. And one could argue if there's no plat on record, we don't know if the bees are in the right place. Because they put in a plat doesn't mean that's where they put the bees, so you still don't know if they're in the right place. If someone calls in, he has bees, if he allowed, I don't know, we don't have the permit. If you pass this, yes you do, they're allowed. And if there is a complaint, it's going to be followed up with whether there was a permit or not. And so I will ask, just kind of on the last thing to keep in your minds when you're considering this, what is the downside of not having a permit? If you have one, you have some administrative overhead. Perhaps one more brick on the scales for audits to look at. If you don't have it, those aren't there. If you don't have it, what do we lose? Where is the problem that we've seen in the past that requires us to have that requirement for the permit? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to speak on this public hearing? They do. They have 5 minutes, and come state your name and address.
My name is Bill Turner. I live at 1690 Elliott Road, Christiansburg. I am not a beekeeper, but I do have a 3,000 square foot garden. And why I'm not a beekeeper, I really don't know, because I love bees. I love their honey. I love my honey. Not only the one that I'm married to for over 30 years, but the one that comes in a jar as well. But I do think that it's going a little far as requiring a fee and requiring a permit. I understand to an extent, Mr. Brown, that you have a little uneasiness around hives. I too am allergic to bees. I get my throat closed up on one side or the other anytime I may get stung by a bee. I know what you go through as far as the paranoia, but I have also been around a few beekeepers, and I have been as close to that box to a hive, and they've never ever offered to bother me. As long as you don't bother it, you're fine. They're not aggressive. They just want their pollen, and they just want their nectar and build their honey. But I'd like to really see you consider dropping the 25-foot limit and drop it down to at least 15 feet. And also the fee or the permit. I mean, it's something, if there's a problem, somebody can call, somebody can always go out, but it's just more administrative material that really doesn't need to be there. But again, I am highly in favor of having bees, and I probably will talk to these people before they get out of here tonight about beekeeping, because I need, and I know that we need our bees. They are under threat by many, many forces. And if we don't do something to increase our bee productivity, we're all going to be starving, because they're our primary pollinator. And I don't think any of us want to to go out and shake every little flower into another little flower in order to get the food that we need to eat. We've got these guys, we've got the black bumblebees that do, we've got some other pollinators that run around, but honeybees, I have to say, in the 20-some years that I've been in my location, I have seen a drastic drop in honeybee population, and we need them very, very desperately. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gerald Organizer, 1600 Winslow Drive, Blacksburg. As mentioned, we have had the draft.
Could you get over to the microphone? Yeah, okay.
As said, we have had a drastic reduction in the number of bees worldwide, including here at home. As a volunteer master gardener, I have received calls from people having problems with their crop production due to a low number of pollinators. This resolution is great for our farmers, those having backyard gardens, and those concerned with the issue of sustainability. I encourage you to pass this resolution.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address this public hearing? If not, I will close that public hearing and get ready to open up another one. The following public hearing was advertised pursuant to law in the New River Valley section of the Roanoke Times on September 13th, 2015 and September 20th, 2015. Ordinance amending Chapter 7 entitled Offenses Creating Sections 7-85 through 7-91 entitled Removal or Disposal of Trash, Cutting of Grass, and Weeds. You got that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and give a brief summary of this, but in response to some problems the county's had with some overgrown properties, the board's instructed the staff to draft an ordinance to address this problem. Under state law, localities are given the authority by enacting an ordinance to deal with weeds and trash, and so the removal of. And so what this ordinance is proposing to do is make it illegal to have weeds growing in excess of 12 inches in height or trash lying on any parcel in the county. Weeds is defined as grass, plants, weeds, poison ivy, poison oak, or any other vegetative growth other than trees, ornamental shrubbery, flowers, garden vegetables, cultivated crops, hay grown, mowed and stored for animal feed. So those things aren't applied. And what this ordinance does is if you violate the 12 inches of overgrown grass or have trash that's not taken care of, it's a civil fine of up to $50 on the first offense. And then every offense thereafter can go up to $200 under the same operative facts, meaning if they don't comply with the requirement to clean up. What the ordinance also does, more importantly, really, is it gives the county the authority to step in and clean up the property. That can be done either with county forces or with crews that are hired by the county, like contractors that are hired to do the work. And then the cost for doing that can be charge the owner, and the statute allows you to go ahead and attach a lien to the property that has the same priority as taxes. So if the property is then later sold, like at one of the hearings the treasurer is going to talk about later, then you can then get your money. Or if the property is sold to another owner, then it's a lien on the property, and you'll get your money back at that point as well. Where does this ordinance apply? It applies in properties in the county that are zoned residential, that are zoned commercial, industrial, or any property that's in a platted subdivision in A1. So that means if it's regular A1 and it's not in a platted residential subdivision, then this ordinance does not apply. And that's under state law. The state law does not allow you, because of the size of our county, we're not a very populated county in a square mile way, and so we don't have the authority to
to have this within A1 unless it's a platted subdivision. Other exemptions are, this would obviously not apply in the two towns, it's only in the unincorporated area of the county. It also does not apply to areas used for pastures, areas under cultivation, active farming operations, forested or subject to utility transmission easement lines. It doesn't apply. Areas where vegetated growth would be regulated under state or federal laws or programs under those state or federal programs. Any stream buffers required by county ordinance or that are protected under conservation easements. So areas where you want grass to grow at a height that's not regulated in order to protect streams and protect runoff from getting into the streams. Areas that are under an approved plan of natural landscaping would apply. So this would be areas where if someone was growing high ornamental grasses higher than 12 inches, this would not apply because that would come under a natural landscaping. And then any areas that are designated through either zoning or subdivision plat as an open space or a green space or a conservation or preservation area or any natural state areas, those areas also would not apply. And then any stormwater management facilities such as detention ponds, that also would not apply because you want high grasses in order to filter the pollutants that come through on any runoff or any water discharge into those detention ponds. So if there's any questions I can answer specifically.
Questions?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Gabriel.
Yeah, I had raised a question the last time this was brought forward, and it seems to be addressed in the kind of
landscape,
the appeal process. Yeah, about natural landscaping,
yes,
and if the property ends up not actually being abandoned.
Yes.
So I just wanted to kind of confirm that.
Yeah, it's one thing I left up. The county administrator or his designees in charge of the program, and once they get, it'll be on a complaint basis, and once they get a complaint, they'll investigate. And if they see that the ordinance is being violated, they'll send a notice, 10-day notice to clean up. And within that notice will be an appeal process where someone can appeal that decision, and they're required to get some type of due process hearing within that 10-day period. So no action will be taken while the appeal process is going on. So there is due process put in the ordinance.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Green?
Yeah, I've got just one thing, and my thought is this, and I truly believe that we should move that from 12 to 15 inches. There's probably been a couple times this year that my house had more than 12 inches of grass growing in.
I mean, I'm open to that. 12 is what I saw in other localities, but 15 would not be out of the.
There are times, especially when you get, this of course is the first wet time we've had in the last month or two, but if you get some good rain and just hit that just right, you want to let your grass grow up and be brought before you do it for 12 inches. I mean, that just is a number that I'd like to say.
Any other questions? Now, I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Now, the county, most likely, if they got a complaint and no action was taken on the complaint, that we would hire a contractor to go out and take care of it. We would pay that contractor and then hold the owner responsible for that money, right?
That's correct, yeah. We do two things. One, we hold them responsible for the cost that we incurred, plus there's an administrative fee also in the ordinance that talks about at a minimum $25 on top of that cost.
Right.
Or 25% of the cost, whichever is less. So up to $150. I'm sorry, it's $150 or 25%, whichever is less, but no less than $25. So.
I said that for two reasons. I asked that question for two reasons. If it was any contractors out there looking at this, and if it was any people, that saying that, well, they got a contractor to do it, man, let the contractor sue me or something.
Yeah.
So,
and what we would do most likely is put an RFP out, get a couple contractors on contract,
and then,
Just, yeah, okay.
So we'd have the costs regulated at least, so they're not gouging anybody.
Well, we'll open it up for public comment. If it's anyone in the audience who would like to comment on this proposed ordinance, they can do so at this time. They can come to the lectern, and they have 5 minutes and state their name and address before they begin. Seeing no one coming forward, we'll close this public hearing. Well, we'll open up another. Following public hearing was advertised pursuant to law in the New River Valley section of the Roanoke Times on September 20th and September 27th. The intent to abandon old school access roads. And I'll just say the state route and the road on all of these and not go any further. The first included in this public hearing is State Route 9262, Aronto Head Start School Road. State Route 9263, Shawsville Elementary School Road. State Route 9265, Ellison Elementary School Road. State Route 9547, former Prices Fork Elementary School Road. State Route 9658, Bethel Elementary School Road. State Route 9815, Elliston Lafayette Elementary School Road. Okay, yep, that's 6 of them.
Yes, sir. And just briefly, this was at the request of VDOT. VDOT sent us some information that these are all schools, obviously, that are no longer, these properties are no longer operated as schools. All of these roads, state routes, are internal to the school property, or what used to be school property. And the reason they were state routes was because VDOT would come in and plow them and take care of them, maintain them. And so, since there's no longer school routes, the schools on every one of these is already passed the resolution saying the property was surplus and it was given to us. And in fact, some of these we don't even own. In fact, the only one we do own at this point, I think, is Shawsville. All the others are owned by, or we don't, no, I think that may be it. And so what this will do is it'll clean up the property for those people that acquire these properties. If you go ahead and pass the resolution at a later meeting, these roads will be abandoned, and then by law they'll go to the current owners.
Mr. Green, do you have a question?
In reading that, I didn't quite understand where we were going to with that. And for some reason I haven't pulled it back up on the computer, but anyhow, it was Shawsville. Pull up and it was what it said about it more than what it. You got to.
That it serves no public necessity, is that what you're talking about?
What?
That it serves no public necessity and it's no longer necessary?
No, it's not necessary, and it serves no purpose or something like that.
Yeah.
You know,
That's what it says.
and I have a hard time trying to understand how you get a piece of land that's got a good road on it and a lot of people living on it, a good number of people living on it, and come up with something that says it's not something that's good for them to have. That the road is just.
I don't think, Mr. Crease, my understanding is that these are all internal roads, like on the school property or what used to be school property. So these roads are serving nothing but the school itself. It was like access roads onto the school.
But that's not true with the shoulder. You're talking about the old elementary. What I understand is you're going off the straightaway.
Mm-hmm.
When you start onto the straightaway, it's the elementary, it's on the left. And they got 3/4 of an acre, I believe is what it is, going back. And when you get back there, the world don't end. It keeps going on back to where we got recreational baseball, or not will be baseball, it'll be softball, I'm sure, for the younger kids. And to say that they have no worth to these people that live along that road, you know, they have somebody explain exactly what's going on. That's what I read out of it.
My understanding in looking at those designations is these are, as Marty said, internal service roads that were designated as state routes, I guess for first responders or whatnot, as part
Just
of...
for maintenance.
For maintenance.
Yeah.
But there are no residents on any of these roads.
But Gary, we'll double check on
What do you mean there's no?
Shawsville Elementary.
He's talking about just this.
On these...
Talking about the road from where it comes off the high?
No, sir, and that's not the road we're talking about. And I can't think of the name of the road that the elementary school's on, but it's not that road. That's a...
Yeah, it's not Rice Street.
No, Rife. That's
Yeah,
right.
It is Rife Street.
No,
We-
we're not talking about Rice Street.
We're not,
We're not talking about
No,
Rife Street.
sir.
You're talking about just the part that's on school property now.
It was on the
Yeah,
former...
after you turn
Yeah.
off Rice Street into the school, we're talking about that road. And that's why it's got a 900 number.
9,000, yeah.
And are we never planning on using that again? Would be my question, and the reason I ask that is that I understand that our Parks and Rec is going to be using that.
Well, if
They will need.
it won't need to be designated as a state route in terms of maintenance, because if we're using it for recreation, we would maintain it ourselves. That's my understanding.
And I was looking at where it says, I thought it said 0.35 miles, and that's the only place I could get Mr. Gold.
Yeah, it's basically the bus loop and...
You got a bus loop, and then you got the front of the
Right there.
school.
Correct. Yeah, that's the area that you're talking about.
I'm very familiar with it, I just couldn't understand why it had no worth from what
It's not that it doesn't have any worth, it's just
From what I was
for
reading.
VDOT.
With VDOT, it has no worth.
Correct. It's a
They don't
public
need to
access.
be
They
going
don't,
after.
they don't want to have it on their maintenance
Correct.
list.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, that's all.
And we'll triple check, but I'm nearly positive this doesn't affect any residential property at all. It's all internal to those.
How come we have a little more of that property there? So is that bad?
Because we got hung up in this.
Okay.
Yeah, so you need to...
We're opening it up for public comment. If anybody wants to comment on this public hearing, they may do so at this time, and they have 5 minutes. Seeing no one coming forward, I'll close this public hearing. Action from public hearings. Any? Just deal with them at a later date. Huh?
They'll all
Yes,
be
sir.
coming back to
The
you.
following meeting, there'll be a resolution. And just to make things a little easier, we'll get some aerial pictures to show the area in question.
Okay, we'll close the public hearings and open up public address. And I have 3 people signed up to speak at public address. And what I say to you all, you come to the podium there, state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes. And the first person who signed up is Dane Lepster.
Hello, my name is Dane Webster. I'm a relatively new resident to the Preston Forest neighborhood. I reside at 4478 Preston Forest Drive. And I'm very concerned, as you could imagine, with the proposed routes for the MVP pipeline. In particular, worried about the alternate Route 200, which would basically run along the backside of my property, not to mention the properties of all my neighbors along there. So for starters, I would like to thank the board. I'm kind of new to this process here and kind of figure out what has been done by this board, but I want to thank you for your resolution dating November 12th, 2014, stating your opposition to the MVP pipeline. And quoting from that statement, it says, if the MVP pipeline were rerouted were to reroute the proposed gas pipeline away from residential communities to areas that are unpopulated, not containing residences, the Board of Supervisors may reconsider opposing the construction of the pipeline. Given MVP's new focus on alternative routes, does this board have any plans to submit a new letter stating its continued opposition to the pipeline and any and all of the alternative routes the MVP is proposing?
Did we do that?
Also, additionally, given the inaccurate information that MVP has provided throughout the process so far, calling into question their credibility, I ask that the board, much like the Board of Supervisors in Roanoke, urge Governor McCullough to give the Department of Environmental Quality the resources needed to oversee the construction of the pipeline should MVP be granted the certificates from FERC to actually build that pipeline. Thank you.
Jennifer Henderson.
Good evening. I'm Jen Henderson, and I also reside at 4478 Preston Forest Drive. We moved in a little over a year ago. I'm a PhD student at Virginia Tech, and I was gone for 10 months of that year in Colorado conducting dissertation work, and returned, found this pipeline going in our neighborhoods, and have been sort of racing to catch up with some of the work that's been done by multiple groups, including yourself, opposing this pipeline. Like Dane, I would like to express my gratitude for work that you've all done in opposing that pipeline to date. I just want to say, alternate Route 200, we oppose the entire pipeline, but in particular, we're concerned about those alternate routes that continue to be modified with the idea that somehow they're going to avoid properties, avoid issues with water rights, with groundwater, with issues of being in proximity to some potential fire or explosion that might happen. I mean, our home would be less than a tenth of a mile from this pipeline were it to go in. So even though this route supposedly, to quote MVP, 200 was proposed to avoid the most serious obstacles to FERC awarding a certificate of necessity and convenience. It was also said to, avoid properties in Preston Forest and Brush Mountain. It's continuing to sort of encroach on the properties. In fact, if the pipeline is built, it's pretty certain that they will need easements from many of the property owners, and this is going to require them to exercise eminent domain. So our concern is a couple of main things, and I apologize if these issues have been addressed. As I said, we're sort of catching up. We're concerned because we're on well water, and we're not sure if the pipeline goes through what's going to happen to the groundwater. You yourselves in that the resolution mentioned by Dane acknowledge that there might be disruptions to and pollution to groundwater. We're not certain what would happen with that. I'm concerned with that and wonder what the board is doing to look at alternative sources of water for residents of Preston Forest and Brush Mountain and those along the pipeline. I'm also wondering if there's an explosion or a fire or something goes wrong with the pipeline, what are the sort of intermediate plans that you all have in mind for residents? Are there contingency plans for fires in that area, for explosions? How would we handle those sorts of things that might happen? And also, our home would be relatively close to a blast zone as construction begins, so we're concerned with noise and pollution protection and concerned with those sorts of issues, and wondering again what plans you all have in mind or what you might be considering in terms of addressing some of these issues. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Karen Ellingson.
Hi, I'm Karen Ellingson. I live at 4309 Kierman Road in Preston Forest. I am a landowner on the original pipeline route. I received my first survey letter on July 29th this year. I'm here to speak about the pipeline, of course. I want to thank the board for their efforts on behalf of the residents, and I wanted to ask you a few questions. An article in the Roanoke Times from September 22nd detailed the Roanoke County Board of Supervisors had passed a resolution because Virginia DEQ DEQ doesn't have the resources to check pipeline plans or conduct field expeditions. The Roanoke County Board of Supervisors passed a resolution urging Governor Terry McAuliffe to provide adequate resources to DEQ to review plans and inspect pipeline construction, and for the department to compel Mountain Valley Pipeline officials to meet with local officials about erosion, sediment control, and stormwater management. Now, on July 27th, Preserve the NRV and Preserve Montgomery County gave a presentation to the board and asked you to pass a similar resolution, and I was wondering where y'all were on that. I also wanted to ask about the noise ordinance. The rumored site for the MVP compressor station is in the Catawba Valley. Under normal operating conditions, compressor stations are loud enough that they can be heard from miles away. They also have blowdowns, which are much louder and can be any time of the day or night. I wanted to know if you had plans to review the noise ordinance and see if it could be updated to protect residents. I also wanted to ask if lights, which are on 24/7 at these compressor stations, would that be considered a general nuisance? Could you update the nuisance ordinance to require the lights to have shields or baffles or some kind of reflectors in place so it wouldn't be shining out into the neighbors' lots, prevent some of the light pollution that would come off of that? Finally, my biggest concern is roads. We were affected by the recent closing of Coalbank Hollow Road for repairs. That was an inconvenience for us. We had a good detour. We could go down Mount Tabor. That can't be said for the other roads that the pipeline will cross in the county. Road closures will be a real hardship for some residents. Some people are going to be cut off from going east. Some people are going to be cut off from going west. I wonder if the board could communicate with VDOT and find out under what circumstances would MVP be allowed to close roads and cut residents off. Would it only be when they have to cross the road? Would they be allowed to close the road when they're moving their machinery, when they're moving their materials? Or, you know, will these constructions, how long will they last? Will they be temporary? Will they be for weeks? Will they be for months? Could they possibly be permanent? An easement filed by MVP in West Virginia prohibits that landowner from driving heavy machinery across the pipeline easement. Will MVP be allowed to change weight limits on roads where the pipeline crosses a road? And finally, will MVP be required to repair the road damage that they have caused, including wear and tear? And if you could coordinate with VDOT and try to find out some of the answers to the questions, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are all the speakers I had signed up, but if there's anyone in the audience who would like to address the board, they can do so at this time.
Jawad Manager, 1600 Winslow Drive, Blacksburg. I'm here to ask the board to consider using its good offices to ask VDOT for funding for a comprehensive plan to improve the existing dangerous intersection of North Main Street and the 460 bypass in Blacksburg. According to the VTrans multimodal needs assessment, this intersection has a high rate of severe accidents and ranks as one of the top 100 in the district. The town of Blacksburg has requested VDOT to fund and construct a grade separated interchange to no avail. VDOT has recognized the problem but has indicated that the funding may not be available for years to come. In a preliminary study, VDOT has identified the most dangerous moves. Those were turning left from both North Main Street and Farmingdale Lane onto 460 and traveling straight from Farmingdale Lane to North Main Street. Subsequently, VDOT provided a plan to be examined by the town to be considered by VDOT for possible future fundings. Last Tuesday, the town council voted in a split decision to go ahead with that request. While the plan prohibits the left turn from North Main Street onto 460, which is the fastest route for those in Mount Tabor area to major clinics and hospitals. The plan limits Farmingdale Lane residents to a direct access to North Main Street and 460 West. If implemented, the emergency vehicles too could not make those turns. Although the plan would reduce the number of accidents, I believe it is a band-aid approach that presents a few problems. First, it shifts the problem westward over the county line when drivers seek to make a U-turn later or turn onto Coal Bank Hollow Road first and then make a left turn onto 460 from there. Second, instead of directing the traffic away from the town, it causes congestion on North Main Street and Patrick Henry Drive. Most importantly, it lowers the chances of funding for future major improvements to zero. I'm sure those seeking the funds for the proposed VDOT plan are concerned with public safety, as those council members who voted against the resolution. But in the long run, the outcome is not effective. Like many, I have advocated a fix to this problem and do not like to see another accident there. Let's do something that yields the best possible outcome. Hasty decisions and lack of proper advice only produce bad results. That's why I'm here. I appreciate it if you please help with this issue to seek VDOT's funding for a more comprehensive solution to reduce the number of accidents and loss of lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to address the board? Seeing no others come forward, we'll close our public address.
Mr. Chair, if I could just add, if I could just say one thing about the DEQ resolution.
Okay.
We've been coordinating with Roanoke County and its staff's plan to have that a similar version of that resolution on the board's next agenda.
Yeah, I was going to add that under my comments as well. Thank you.
I think Mary's made a note, and I made a note of it.
I've
got a note.
But I know that the county administrators in the areas like Giles and Roanoke and Montgomery and things, they're always trading notes with each other, which group is doing this, and seeing whether we could help support it or do something very similar. So we're not in the pipeline all by ourselves. So it's like I guess a little regional approach to it. And so I'll close the public address session. Before we get to the addendum, we're going to take about a 6-8 minute break and then reconvene. Well, we can reconvene at this time now. And our next item of business was the addendum.
Yes, sir. We do have one addendum this evening that we'd like to add as item number 3 under work session related to VDOT revenue sharing discussion with Virginia Tech.
Takes a vote to add it, right?
Yes, sir.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and second to add the addendum to our work session tonight. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
And this adds revenue sharing as number 3 under our work session. The next item is consent agenda.
Move approval. Second.
Having a motion and a second to approve our consent agenda. Any discussion? The clerk please call the roll.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Need a motion to go into work session. Be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors hereby enters into work session for the purpose of discussing the following: treasurer, delinquent real estate taxes, bills, and equity tax. B, proration personal property tax. 2, proration personal property tax. And 3, revenue sharing FY17. Need a motion to go into work session?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion second to go into work session. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye. We'll go in work session. I guess the first item on the work session would be our treasurer. We'll talk about delinquent real estate taxes, bills, and equity tax.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Thank you for taking a few minutes to listen to a few of my concerns. The first concern is to ask for appropriation of $15,000 so we can get our bills and equity sales going once again. Marty McMahon used to do it for us, but with this workload being so deep and wide, I talked to him about it, and we're had sought an outside firm. It's Taxing Authority Counseling Services, and we're asking for appropriation of $15,000. Not that we will use this, but it's to start the bills and equity. During the bills and equity, if we have roughly $260,000 in real estate property that could either go up for auction or be paid in advance. If the attorney firm needs funds, we needed to have some set aside just in case they were not collecting what they should up front. We'd probably never need the $15,000 in appropriation. It'll be set aside, and when the sale of these properties are sold, it will be given back to the county. So it's not a cost, it's just asking for $15,000 to be appropriated for bills and equity sale. Does anybody have questions on the appropriation?
Okay.
A couple of things. As far as I understand, Marty, please correct me. If you're seeking legal counsel, you don't have to receive outside bids or look at outside bids.
No, we don't.
Did you look at some of the local law firms who do government
yes,
law?
I did.
And so, which law firms did you look at?
I'm trying to think.
This is
I didn't
based
bring
out
that
of,
with me tonight, but I
the
did.
taxing authority, they're based out of, is it Richmond?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And
And
Sands
they work
Anderson,
with a lot of treasurers throughout the state of Virginia doing bills and equity sales.
and I understand they do a lot of those, but I know that Sands Anderson is a large firm that does
That's who I talked to.
a
I'm
lot
sorry.
of governmental work, and I was just curious if they were interested in doing that because they pay taxes here in Montgomery County.
They do, and I wanted to pick someone or at least talk to them in Montgomery County, but their fees were much higher.
As far as, can I ask how much higher?
They were about 5% higher on what they collected, and then if we had any surplus funds at the end that Montgomery County holds and then gets, if a customer or family does not claim those assets in 2 years, they wanted 6% for us holding the funds.
All right, so they wanted their fee was 5% higher than the taxing authority.
Yes, plus that 6% at the end if we had any excess funds in the surplus.
Did you speak to any other law firms in
No, I
Montgomery
didn't.
County? Okay.
Yeah, can you just clarify, Mr. Shelton, the $15,000? So you're asking for an appropriation that will be basically set into a pot just in case you need it, and
Right.
then you said it would be returned to the county. So what is that? What do you mean by that?
Okay, what it is, the attorneys will send out a letter to those who owe us taxes to Montgomery County. They will receive their fee. It's going to be a lot of people that will pay getting a letter from an attorney or attorney's firm. They will take those funds. It's going to cost them something to do advertising, to send out their letters, do the necessary process. And before Marty just billed us at his rate, lower rate, but he doesn't have time to do all the work on looking at each property and doing the proper work for that.
I understand that. I think my question is more is that, correct me if I'm wrong, but the attorney, if you go with this tax company?
Tax authority.
They would bill you at the end of the process, correct? Not
They'll bill us along the process.
along the process?
Yes.
Okay. And so the $15,000 would pay them along the way.
If we need it, we probably will not need it.
Then why do you need the appropriation right now?
Okay, because I don't have the $15,000 in my budget. I don't want to set up a contract with them, then have to break it because I do not have money in our account for that.
Okay, and you believe and you've come to the conclusion that $15,000 would be sufficient for this process?
Yes, that's more than enough.
That's more than enough. Okay, so how, if it's more than enough, then how much do you need?
We're not sure how much it'll be.
Okay.
Yeah, but approximately it could be that amount.
Okay.
Yeah, but I feel 15,000 will be more than enough, so I don't have to come back 6 months, a year from now and ask the board for additional money.
Okay.
This 15,000 will be returned after the sale has been made.
Okay.
All right. It's like a no interest loan.
Excuse me, I mean, you might have just answered what I was going to ask, but you said the 15,000 will be returned after?
Yes.
Oh, okay, out of the money you collect, you'll reimburse the 15?
We're going to reimburse the county.
Oh,
That's
okay.
an expense.
Okay,
Yeah.
good, yeah, okay.
Oh, I was just going to ask, did you have like any money left over from your last year's budget that you could use towards this at all?
We are buying a copier with that. I haven't had a new copier in our office since I became treasurer.
Okay, thank you.
And you said it's going to take you six months to a year?
It will probably approximately take is a good 6 months to a year to bring any of these properties to sale. It has to do a title search on each property. We have to have enough so we can have an attractive sale. As of June 30th, 2015, the total that outstanding property that was sold at that time was roughly $260,000 in outstanding taxes.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask another question?
Yes.
I want to make sure I get, so we're not paying them by the hour, we're paying them a percentage fee, is
Right.
a collection fee?
Yes.
So what is their collection fee?
They charge 20%.
Okay, and so Sands Anderson was charging 25%?
Yes.
Okay.
And
And
we
those
wanna
will be
try-
assessed to, on the sale as a part of the cost to be taken out of the property proceeds. If there's anything left, it goes to the landowners.
Yes.
And after the taxes and
And the
costs are
fees.
assessed.
Correct. But it's your choice if you would like to give us the appropriation of the 15,000 so we can get this bill in equity sale process started. It's a good investment for the county. Invest 15 and roughly get back 260,000.
Well, we won't get that much back after you take the fees and everything out of it, so
No.
it'd be
All
close.
this is added.
Yeah, it'd be added on top of
Supervisor
it.
Brown.
Okay.
The taxpayer will be added all costs involved.
Okay.
If someone owed us $2,000, now with our fees, it's $2,400 plus the advertising cost plus the cost of the sale, it will not cost us anything.
Okay, if we as a board did not appropriate the $15,000, what would happen?
It won't happen. I mean, it's...
You have no other plan?
We have already done all the actions we can do. We've written our last final delinquent notice letter. We've done everything we can do to collect. Some of these properties they're deceased. They don't even know who the heirs are. When Marty did some of the searches, it was one property that we had listed all the heirs, and it was 2 full pages in the newspaper. So to do the research, the title search, it's long and a drawn-out process. And Marty could answer those questions better than I. I would have you ask Marty, should we do this or not?
I think that really is a decision for this board, not to put any pressure on Marty, but
I agree.
Marty hasn't been appointed. And you know, I promise not to practice law, and I think Marty promised not to vote. And I don't know if you wanted some discussion here. I do think that it is a good process of clearing up. Sometimes you get property that has been left behind. You've got 8 heirs. You don't know where anybody's at. Nobody's paying any taxes. That you got neighbors complaining, people living in the houses. Nobody, no running water. Those are all issues. I would like to see us go forward in regards to this. I thought there was some more rollover money. I didn't know how expensive his copier was going to be. But I thought that the treasurer's office had some additional rollover funds, but I may be mistaken.
Okay, comments?
I just wondering if they want 20% of this $260,000, it looks like to me they'd pay up front and collect it when the money was collected.
Normally they will get their funds when it's collected.
Yeah.
But they have ongoing expenses too.
So
we're asking them to do work,
right,
not knowing what the properties will bring.
Right, but they said they want 20% of $260,000.
But roughly, yes.
I mean, what I'm saying, if we're going to give them 20% of $260,000, they ought to pay up front, shouldn't they? I mean, we're paying the bills plus 20%.
Well, I think what Mr. Shelton is saying is that during the process, the law firm will have a payroll.
Right.
And some expenses.
Right.
They have to meet their payroll and stuff while they're still trying to collect and go through the process.
Right.
Instead of the law firm putting out money paying for their expenses.
Well, they're going to deduct that from that 20%, right?
They will have 20% and they have to cover their expenses. The 20% is their fee. It's not like going on an hourly wage, not knowing they're going to charge us $250, $500 per hour.
They want 20% plus the fees.
They want 20% of what they collect.
Right.
So $200,000 roughly would be $40,000.
Right. Yeah. So that's all we're going to pay them is $40,000 if they collect $230,000.
And actually, it'll be assessed against the property. So conceivably, there will be some piece of property that will not bring enough money to cover the cost
the
of the
expenses.
sale.
That's right.
Hopefully, some of those pieces of property, you get it back on tax rolls. Maybe you buy it, put a house on it, it benefits us all. But we might lose money on some of the properties. There's other pieces of property that are going to bring enough to cover the cost of the sale, and then maybe even have some extra where money gets set aside for whoever the landowner was. And looking at things, that's the way but the landowner has to pay these fees in addition to the taxes.
Right.
So, okay, all right, I want to make sure.
What I'm trying to figure out is $15,000 and they want 20% of $230,000 or $260,000. If we collect that whole $260,000 what we give them out of that 15, are they going to deduct that out
They
of
won't even
their?
touch the 15 they collected, Supervisor King. The 15,000 is just there in case they're not meeting their expenses. Well, we will not owe them anything, but they have upfront expenses. They may get into this and have, let's say, $5,000, haven't collected anything, and ask us for $5,000 until they collect it and get caught up.
All right, so we're not guaranteeing them $15,000 no matter what, correct?
No.
Okay, all right. Because it sounds like they're saying there's $15,000 out there, and we're promising that we're going to give them $15,000 no matter what. I know, okay. I just want to...
Yeah, that's where I was coming from. We're going to give them that 15 plus 20%.
They only
not plus.
collect their fees if they collect.
Because didn't you say early on is that if it's $2,000, they've got to add, they have to add on the 20% and that sort of thing. So maybe $2,400. They have to get from the taxpayer.
For $2,400, then when they get their $400, they're paid. They pay us $2,000, keep $400, and send us what's owed to us.
Now, does this $260,000, does that include the penalties?
Penalty and interest, yes.
Okay.
The penalty and interest continues to accrue.
So what you're saying is, in the long run, if we were to collect all of this money that's owed us, we would get $260,000.
Correct.
And we would also get the $15,000 would be there because they would take. It's for incidentals, right? Or
no, the $15,000 will be refunded to Montgomery County.
Right. That's what
we will always get back our $15,000.
Right.
The 15 is just for upfront costs. If for some reason within the next several months they do not receive anything back from our taxpayers.
Right.
But we get a benefit once it goes back on the tax bills. The properties are sold at auction, then they go back to current taxes. So we start getting usable money twice a year. Then the buyer that buys this property at auction must also be a taxpayer in good standings. Someone who's delinquent to us now cannot buy this property. And then any surplus funds sits in an account or at courthouse for 2 years. If it's not claimed within 2 years, then Montgomery County receives that. We had a piece of property once that did that. Didn't we get around $60,000 after 2 years of sitting?
I can't remember the figure, but there were probably 4 or 5 or 6 properties that we got the money back after 2 years.
But it was roughly, in my mind, about $60,000 that came back to Montgomery County.
well, I understand what you're saying. Maybe I used the wrong word, meaning incidentals, but meaning that these are things that have to be paid to these collectors until they.
I didn't want to get into not having extra money if
I
we
understand.
needed it.
I understand
Yeah.
why you're asking for it.
Other questions or comments? Any? No. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is about proration. Proration for personal property taxes is being considered beginning on January 1st, 2016. It is my finding that this will not be a wise choice for Montgomery County to enter into proration. Please consider the following reasons before making your decision. when Mr. Meadows presented the 2016 budget to the Board of Supervisors on March the 9th, stated that this year's budget did not recommend any new or additional positions in any office. To implement proration with the size of Montgomery County with 94,000 plus citizens, the additional workload on the Commissioner and Treasurer's office would be impossible with our current staff. The Commissioner stated on September 14th that she had one employee that could do all the work needed for probation in her office. Ms. Royal stated that she had compared 5 localities, but only named 2 of them in her presentation. Culpeper County, with a population of 47,000, and Powhatan County, with a population of 27,600. It is hard to compare one county with another county when their populations are so much smaller than Montgomery County. For example, Powhatan County added 1 employee to the Commissioner of the Revenue to handle their additional workload with proration. Remember, they're 27,000. Montgomery County would at least need 2 full-time positions for the Commissioner and the Treasurer's office. Both offices would need at least 2 additional full-time employees and additional costs to the county per year, with an estimated salary and benefits of $35,000 each, for a total of $140,000. Plus, there will be additional costs for billing, printing, postage, NADA costs, munis programs, and support fees, computers and training. I talked to the treasurer of Powhatan County, 27,600, Faye Barton, and she said that very few treasurers like proration because of the additional workload. Ms. Barton stated that munis support system would be expensive. Current collection means will take a hard hit. There will be additional billing expenses. I received a response from David DeJarmond, treasurer of Culpeper County, 47,000. Proration for your size county is a big deal. Your supplemental billing will increase by a factor of 4 or 5 times, and tax refunds will increase by a factor of 10 times. We are less than half your size and receive 1 extra employee who works solely with supplemental bills, addresses updates, moving abatement credits, performing tax refunds. The Commissioner received 1 extra employee as well, 47,000. The 2016 budget did not have an increase in our current real estate tax rate of 89 cents per 100 value and $2.55 per 100 value for personal property taxes. Ms. Roll stated that Montgomery County would not have a tax increase with proration, but I differ with her on that matter. Proration will be an instant tax increase. Personal property tax relief, PPTR, will be less per vehicle, making personal property taxes higher. Based on Ms. Roll's proration test, taxes would increase 7.66% because PPTR will decrease by that percent. Taxpayers under our current system receive a benefit when they purchase a new or used car after January 2nd of any year. Any vehicle that is purchased January 2nd and forward, a taxpayer is not billed for this vehicle until the following year, giving them a lower tax assessed value because an additional year's depreciation has been given. A vehicle purchased under the proration of taxes will not be given any depreciation in value and would be taxed at the full assessed value immediately. Montgomery County has 59,000 vehicles on record. With vehicles bought, sold, and traded each day, it would be very hard to impose and to maintain these changes on a daily and weekly basis. According to Supervisor Creed, Montgomery County has the two largest dealerships in Virginia, Sheeler Motor Mile and Duncan Automotive Network. To change one record in the Commissioner's office, it takes 15 steps. It also takes numerous steps in our office to change one vehicle. I'm not going to take time to go over that this evening. I had brought that in my first presentation on March 23rd of this year. Proration will impact the collection of delinquent taxes. Proration will require more time spent on collecting current taxes, as we will be billing year-round instead of once a year. We will never stop assessing, refunding, billing, and moving money from one account to another. I foresee a possible drop in delinquent collections as we be more focused on current collections. Last year, 2014, our delinquent department collected an additional $1.5 million added to Montgomery County's general fund. This $1.5 million was not received through delinquent notices, but through other actions taken. All counties and cities don't use the same collection means that we use. Excuse me. These actions and our actions include these legal actions: a treasurer's lien, warrant in debt for judgment, DMV stops, which is a withholding of vehicle registration at the DMV, set off debt through withholding Virginia income tax refund, and distress levies. We also have collected in past years, of course, real estate taxes through judicial sales known as BOE actions, what we just discussed. I asked for the $15,000 a few minutes ago in that appropriation to collect these delinquent real estate taxes. Information to be considered from other localities. Bradford City, Giles County, Floyd County, and town of Christiansburg use January 1st assessment day. The town of Blacksburg only charges a motor vehicle fee on vehicles and does not charge a personal property tax. It would be impossible for Montgomery County's records to be maintained with the town of Christiansburg on one system and the county on another. I have contacted Mayor Barber and the treasurer of the town of Christiansburg, Val Tweedy, and the town will not go to proration even if it is passed through the county. And a county that houses towns does not have to go with proration if the county is a prorating county. The reason was the additional costs associated with this process. Roanoke City and Roanoke County has been prorating personal property taxes for at least 20 plus years. Ellen Powers, treasurer of Roanoke City, spoke to the board during my presentation on March 23rd and said, even with these many years of experience, there are many errors with processing. Penalty and interest charges are waived many times because of errors. Personal property taxes billed yesterday may be wrong tomorrow with additional changes. Ms. Powers spoke against proration during her presentation because of the cost associated with its process and additional staff needed. Roanoke County has 98,000 population, a staff of 16. We are 94,000 with a staff of 11. Roanoke City supplemental billing consists up to 400 bills per day, and Roanoke County up to 500 per week. In any locality, vehicles are bought, sold, and traded every day. The population of Roanoke City is 98,000, Roanoke County 94,000. Are similar in size to Montgomery County with 94,000 residents. I have compared Roanoke City and Roanoke County because they are neighboring counties, or county and city. It is hard to compare one locality with another, but a similar sized locality is a good working example. Currently, a citizen who lives in Montgomery County pays personal properties on vehicles they own January 1st. If a vehicle is purchased and is traded in proration, it will be taxed on both vehicles for the period of time this vehicle was owned. What it is, if you own a vehicle from January 1st to June 30th, you're going to be paid for that one. You buy a new vehicle June 30th forward, you're taxed immediately for that car. That's how the additional $1.3 million was generated, but it is a tax increase. There are many ifs and unknown factors. All localities have different ways to figure vehicle values. What works for one locality may not work for another. How would the motor vehicle license fee be fairly assessed? Time-consuming corrections will be costly to both offices. These are some of the localities I've checked with. City of Newport News. I send out corrected bills daily. Culpeper County, we've already used them. Sent 4 or 5 times increase on supplemental billing and 10 times the refunds. Spotsylvania County, Commissioner of the Revenue really has to rely on DMV records. Goochland County, it is a huge hassle to implement. The cost of manpower, hours, postage, paper, against abatements and supplements, and it appears to break even. We really do not like it. It's a nightmare. York County, workload and cost high. 50% of localities in Virginia prorate. Most of these localities have prorated for many years. It would be best if the commissioner would spend more time correcting addresses. One of the commissioner's responsibilities is to make sure we receive the correct address of taxpayers. They are the keeper of records. Any changes in addresses can only be made by the commissioner. Each year, when our personal property tax bills are mailed out, we receive thousands of pieces of return mail marked return to sender, not deliverable as addressed, unable to forward. We are then unable to collect the amounts owed on these return tax statements, costing the county tens of thousands of dollars in uncollected revenues each year. Let me stop at this point for a moment.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
We received this from our printers today. I'll go over just a couple moments. The Treasurer's Office is in the process of mailing out 53,639 tax bills for 2015. Several vehicles are on many of these bills, plus some bills have up to 10 pages of vehicles under one customer number or PPID number, which is personal property ID number. There has been 6,417 of these addresses, I have them in my hand right here, that were changed through the national change of address and other sources used by Best Mailing Services before we have mailed out our bills. 6,417 bad addresses. That's for 2015. Plus, there are 159 personal property tax bills that an address could not be found and will not be mailed. We're also mailing out 35,709 real estate bills for 2015 bill B, the second installment. Tax bills that will be mailed are 35,709. There were 259 real estate addresses corrected before mailing through Best Mailing, and 123 addresses could not be found and will not be mailed out. This is real estate. I have a printout of personal property addresses that were changed that consists of 260 pages of addresses that were found by the national change of address that was wrong, front and back. Well, it's page 1 and page 2, excuse me. I have 244 pages on record from 2014 that personal property we had wrong addresses then was 6,031. And for 2013, I had 182 pages that were addresses that were wrong, 4,588 addresses. Time needs to be spent on better addresses, not on a new system. Ms. Royal stated on September 14th that with proration using the available DMV downloads, this would correct her records. The same downloads that are used for our January 1st billing are the same as those that would be used for proration. I don't understand that. After my presentation, Mark Magruder will give you his findings on the $1,300,000. I have questions about that too. In my findings, I did see money collected, but not money refunded. We'll see who's right or who's wrong on that. I also had a question on her presentation that it had an expected growth of 15%, and the board questioned that, and then another additional 3% each year after, making it a possible 18%. I have a question with that because we have so many unknown factors. In closing, January 1st ownership for the assessment of personal property has worked for Montgomery County in the past, and I recommend keeping our current system in place. Going to proration would only grow government in both offices. Again, we would need at least 2 full-time employees, not just for the implementation of this program, but for years to come. The cost of additional staff, supplemental bills, abatements, refunds, munis, and support fees, postage, and other items need to be estimated at this time. Under proration, taxes will increase because under proration, taxes will increase because of the decrease in PPTR credits. Proration is an instant tax increase. Roanoke City supplemental billing consists, once again, of $400 per day, Roanoke County up to $500 a week. There are many ifs and unknown factors. What works for one locality may not work for Montgomery County. I have talked to treasurers of similar sized localities, Roanoke City, Roanoke County, and many other localities throughout the state. The town of Christiansburg is against proration. Our adjacent towns, counties, and cities are against proration, as well as other localities that already use proration. I talked to numerous commissioners during our combined Treasurers Commissioners Conference this summer in Roanoke, and most were against proration and could not believe that Montgomery County was considering this change. For more than 11 and a half years, I've had the privilege to serve our county as treasurer. The board and our county administrator has always trusted my judgment in the collection of taxes and actions needed to collect them. Our current tax collection rate is one of the best collection rates in the state. Please don't jeopardize our current collections by implementing proration for a few dissatisfied customers. The majority of personal property taxes collected come from the permanent residents of Montgomery County. Thank you for your time this evening. Do y'all have some questions?
Questions?
Yeah, that's me.
Just thank you. That was a very wide-ranging presentation. I'm wondering if you could clarify a little bit more about your insistence on this being, if we were to adopt proration, that this would be a tax increase. Now, certainly, it would increase the amount of tax collected. Now, but the rate, the personal property rate currently in Montgomery County is what?
$2.55 per hundred.
And what would it
One
be?
of the lowest in the state
Indeed.
of Virginia for our size.
And what would it be immediately after we adopted proration?
Still $2.55.
That's right.
but
So
it's
it
against
would not be a tax increase in any way, shape, or form.
Yes, it is. I
It would not.
disagree.
It would be an increase
I
in
disagree
the
with
amount
you.
of tax collected. You can disagree, but you're wrong.
Now,
Because
I've done the research with hundreds of hours. I can sit down and show you this.
that's fine, but the tax rate is staying exactly the same. And the amount of tax that's being collected would indeed increase, not only from people who get to be free riders, basically, if they buy a car on
It's been
January
that
2nd.
way ever since I've been alive, Supervisor.
That's not a good reason to keep something just because we've been doing it all along. Unless we can marshal arguments that it's a productive way to continue, then we need to reassess things. And that's what's happening. All right. That's regardless. I'm trying to establish the fact that this is not in fact a tax increase. Now, I understand that you are presenting it that way, and yes, indeed, it will require that because of the way that the personal property tax relief comes to us, which is a state mandate, and they keep decreasing while they keep maintaining the same level of amount, and so proportionately it keeps decreasing. But that happens every year. By that logic, every year there's a personal property tax increase when we keep the level flat. But that's actually not what's actually happening. What's happening is the state is reducing its amount in real terms, and the amount of money that's coming to us to provide that. Okay. Now, as far as what's happening, like, you're absolutely right in that someone buys a car now on January 2nd, according to proration, would pay tax on that car for every day that they own that car.
Correct.
Right? And for someone who moves out of the county, they wouldn't have to pay on that. Now, this is not intended, I don't think, to catch necessarily people who move in and move out very quickly, but simply to make sure that people are paying their fair share. That when somebody buys their car, they're not, kind of taking the county for a ride and getting a full year free, when otherwise they should be paying taxes on that. Right? Is that what's going on?
All right.
Is that correct?
Okay, let me explain that. Okay, when someone comes to Montgomery County, they should know our tax rate. We're non-prorated. Other counties are. They have the right to choose to live in Montgomery County or Roanoke City that prorates, or Roanoke County that prorates.
That's correct, and we would advertise the fact that we would prorate, right? We were not going to hide this from
we do not prorate now. But let me explain. 50% of the county, cities, towns in Virginia do the same as we do. January 1st billing. Most are from Roanoke to Bristol, Virginia, do not prorate. Most counties, cities from Roanoke to Fairfax prorate. We don't.
That's correct, and I think that symbolizes the rapidly urbanizing nature of Montgomery County. Is that we're one of the fastest growing counties. In fact, the fastest growing county according to the University of Virginia, the Cooper Center for Population Studies. Anywhere in the entire anywhere in the entire Commonwealth, and so that signals the fact that we're going to have increasing needs to provide to our citizens. Which, I mean, it's not like we're going to take their money and kind of throw it in the air or anything like that. I mean, that's going to be reinvested in the community, just like we've done, at least since I've been on the board, and I know for much longer, is that we've been good stewards for the money and put it back into the community. And this is what this is intended to correct, is that we have increasing pressures on roads, we have increasing pressures on social services, we have increasing pressures on schools, and the state ain't going to step up to do that because they're just washing their hands of anything considering this. And so this is a way to ameliorate that problem, is to make sure that we have an increasing revenue stream to provide for the rapidly growing population that we have. And it's not just all Virginia Tech, although a lot of it has to do with Virginia Tech.
Does.
A lot of it has to do with people finding reasons to move to this county. And I seriously doubt the fact that they're going to have to pay taxes on their car for an extra 6 months is going to deter them from moving here when they see the benefits that they gain from that.
But can I interrupt a minute?
Sure.
Our rate is $2.55 per $100 value. You go to Fairfax, it's $5 per 100. You go to Roanoke County, Roanoke City, it's $3.50. We give a good value the way we tax now. We have a fair tax. A fair tax is when you tax everyone equally, and it's January 1st. That's our magic number. The state gives us 2 ways to tax. One, January 1st billing, ownership January 1st, or proration. Montgomery County has always chosen January 1st.
That's right. Well, let me correct you on 2 points. Is that the state gives the board the authority to tax, and also that this indeed would still be fair, and that everyone would be treated equally, no matter who you are, no matter what you would do. If you bought a car on June 30th, you would be taxed. You would be given the same amount. You would be taxed the same amount.
Not necessarily fair under proration either, because the citizens that lived here for 50, 60 years, they go out, buy a car June 30th, and now they're taxed instantly. They said, I didn't know we had this. What's this bill? It's proration. I'm taxed higher with a car I just bought. If the first year I bought my car, I got a little depreciation, and I was taxed the following year. The car that I now own, I'm taxed for it the whole year.
That's right.
Of January 1st.
That's free riding. I mean, I bought a car in May of this year. I haven't gotten a tax bill. I should be paying taxes on that.
Not necessarily.
I should absolutely be paying taxes. That's my civic duty to give back to my community.
You live in Montgomery County, and that's not how we tax.
Well, it may be soon.
Well, if you take a better look
I don't think this is productive anymore, so thank you.
Are you going in line?
Yeah, Mr. Tuck.
All right. Richard, I'm trying to get to the facts, to try to make an informed decision. I think the staff isn't here to make recommendations to us. They're just here to provide us information, and hopefully what you're here to do is try to help us. I've heard Helen come before us and say, need one employee. You're saying that she, in her own offices, she doesn't know what she's saying, and that you're saying you know. Have you guys had a meeting?
No, we have not.
Can I ask why not?
Because she doesn't talk to me.
All right.
But have you tried to, have you called her and
She
walked
hasn't.
across the hallway?
No, she didn't talk to me when she first started looking into probation in 2014.
Well, have you thought about trying to reach, I don't know what the issues have been in the past, but try to meet with one another to try to come up with, because both of you are elected officials. Both of you are here to serve the taxpayers.
Correct. If,
We don't have a dog in this.
Sorry on that, I told Mr. Meadows a few weeks ago that I'd be more than glad to sit down with her, myself, her staff, my staff, the board, with Mr. Meadows, and let us discuss this matter. It's a huge matter. It's not just going to impact a few months. It's going to impact years to come. My question is, if she cannot find, wait a minute, no, excuse me. If she cannot have correct addresses now, what's going to happen when we go to proration? And these things have to be billed daily, weekly, monthly.
All right, let me go to the proration aspect of things, make sure I understand things. And perhaps I don't, and that, again, this is to inform us so we make good decisions. When I was hearing, and maybe I'm wrong, that there wouldn't be bills going out every single day, that they would still bill, and maybe I'm wrong on this, you would go out a couple of times a year.
That's what she said, not what the process of doing proration billing.
Okay, but could you not do it the way she's talking about and billing it? And so if Matt buys his car in May, and she sends out a bill for Matt to pay his taxes, let's say it goes out in December, and Matt has to pay his taxes for 7 months of the year, and not send out 400 bills a day or 500 bills a day. Is that, are you saying that that's not allowed or that's not possible?
You can't do it. You can't catch up.
Well, why can't
all localities that I have talked to, I've talked to dozens. Big localities, small localities. You can't catch up even if you do it daily, weekly, monthly. It's impossible with the workload that has to go into two billings. I have to bill for the car he owned first, for the part of the year that he has. Then I have to bill for the new car.
Okay.
But how are you going to gain the $1.3 million if that's the figure that it's come up with, which under my calculations, I don't think it will be near that. It's just an estimate. No one knows. But because you only compared a few months, you didn't compare like I did 2013. How many wrong addresses we had? 2014.
And I know the wrong addresses, and it's not really why we're here tonight. As I understand it, maybe.
No, you're right.
Okay, I'm here to try to understand, should I vote for proration or should I not? And try to look at the numbers of it.
Correct.
All right, and so when I'm hearing you're talking about 4 employees, and you said $35,000 including benefits. Is that correct? And where did you get that number from?
An open salary for, if you hired a new tax technician today, is $28,000. Then our benefit package is roughly 20% more with health insurance, the different things, retirement and all that the county offers. That's going to be roughly $30,000.
I may be wrong. I don't think that number's correct. I think that number will be even higher.
Okay.
Than the 20, the number that you described at 35,000.
That was estimated.
Okay. And you've looked at the 2 employees that she has, and you're saying that those numbers are going to be similar to $35,000 as well. Where did you get the numbers for her employees?
Would be the same as mine. It would be a starting.
So are they the same level?
Yeah, a tax technician is the same, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So everybody starts off at the same level in either one of the offices?
Correct. Okay. Yes, sir. Same heading, tax technician. You might call them something else with proration, but it's considered a starting position, tax technician in our office. If you were working the front lines or an office in the back, it starts out roughly 27,800, somewhere in that neighborhood.
All right. And so
you're saying your cost, do you have an estimate at your cost that proration is going to cost your office? I'm not asking about Helen's right now.
I have no idea overall. We'll need 2 employees.
Okay, so is that?
At least 2 or ever.
All right.
Okay, and then when the county grows, we'll need more.
I understand that. So let's say that that's 80,000. Let's even say 50,000, including that's 100,000. Okay, for those 2 employees. Is there additional costs in your office mailing?
Yes, it is.
Do you have an estimate what proration will cost your office to help me understand? Do you have an estimate?
Right. I'll try to get you that. The reason why we don't know how many thousands of cars will be coming into our locality going out.
But you have a pretty good idea because you can look at last year and see how many cars came in and out, couldn't you?
Okay, but we'll have to pay for billing.
Right.
We'll have to pay for postage.
I want to know how much that billing's going to cost.
All that comes out of the treasurer's budget, not the commissioner.
I understand. Okay. I'm not trying to get into her right now. I'm trying to ask, because you're right here in front of me, and I'm asking numbers from you.
Right.
So you're saying you don't know exactly for postage, you don't know how much for additional office equipment. Do you believe that you can give us those numbers accurately and give us some basis for those numbers?
I'll get as close as I can.
Okay.
It's no way of knowing what they would be. The cost of the computer, we're going to have to enter into an additional cost to Munis support. Munis systems will have to add on a new system to our office to function.
Now, I thought we already have Munis.
We do.
Okay.
But this currently our system is not built, for my understanding, what I have seen, does not instantly have proration added to it.
All right, so what is the cost to add proration? So you don't know?
But I can get it.
Okay. Is there any other cost out there? So again, what I'm worried about is I want to look at the numbers, and I do believe in fundamental fairness, and I disagree with you some. I think that somebody who buys a car on January 2nd ought to pay taxes on it, and somebody who sells a car on January 2nd shouldn't have to pay for the entire year.
Right.
So we may disagree on that, but I want to get the numbers because I do think, as Gary mentioned, there may be some economic benefits in selling new cars and not taxing. And I understand that aspect of, and I'm trying to listen to everything to come up with a good decision.
Right.
Is there any other costs out there that you can think of that you think that we need to look at as far as numbers?
Well, some of the things that I mentioned earlier, all the costs that I feel that we will have, I will try to estimate it.
In your office, and I'm not...
My office.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm talking about my office. It may sound like I'm trying to argue with you tonight. I'm not. You know, if proration was so important, why hasn't it been looked at previously than right now? If it was so important to our current commissioner, why didn't you look at it 4 years ago?
Well,
the board asked about it years ago.
Yeah, we need to clarify
We need to clarify that. We directed her
to do it.
To do that. She didn't do it on her own.
Yeah, when she came on her presentation 2/13 of 2015 and said, I want this. I want this.
All right. But let's try to get more to the numbers, if that's all right with folks, and help me to understand. You used an abbreviation. You explained some of the abbreviations, but I didn't hear what PPRT stood for.
Personal Property Tax Relief.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then
last
you
year
said that there was additional, that you would found that information that when the commissioner gets this information, and I know I said when to ask about the other office, but you said there's 15 steps. May I ask that additional steps that her staff is going to have to take? May I ask, where did you get that information about the 15 additional steps for proration?
Okay, I had, of course, treasurers and commissioners, we can look at websites and see, we can, I took a class on treasurers' responsibilities.
I get treasurers.
But I'm just saying, this pulls from this. I can go over all of them, and she can correct me if I'm wrong on any of the 15.
All right, now, you know how when you go to a mechanic shop, they say it's going to take you an hour and a half to change this and change this part? Does the state have it where these 15 steps will take 25 minutes or 5 minutes, or is there, and there may not be, and I'm just asking the question because I've never worked in the treasurer's office or the commissioner's office.
Neither have I.
Well, wait a minute. Treasurer's office, 11 years.
There's a process for everything, Mr. Tuck. There's a process and an order.
Is there, the commissioner, the 15 steps you're talking about, is there a time set that, oh, this is going to generate an increased time, or is there, am I asking the question that can't be answered?
Everything takes time. How long it takes to download one vehicle, I don't know. How much time it takes to review and change the detailed vehicle class code of other than a car, I don't know. Review and change the detailed vehicle status, how long it takes, I don't know. Verify the move-in date, I can't get that, that's through DMV.
But
verify
isn't some of those records automatically download to the DMV?
They are downloaded, but how it takes to pull each of these out, I have no idea.
All right, so it's not automated. You're saying that to find out that Annette bought a car, or actually, Matt bought a car recently. To find that out, you have to pull that up. The computer doesn't already kick it out?
Through DMV. Many times the car dealers puts the car in the wrong jurisdiction. They may put it Roanoke County, it's billed to Roanoke County, Roanoke City. They may put Roanoke, Montgomery County, which is actually in the town of Christiansburg. DMV doesn't always get it right, but that's the main source.
Thank you. I know I asked a lot of questions. Thank y'all for your time.
Respond to one more thing.
Sure.
On that
Good questions.
PPTR, the personal property tax credits, Montgomery County has a blank check from the state each year, $4,700,000, which has to be distributed per value of each car. And last year, the tax credits on the first $20,000 was 43.81%. The year before that, it's like 44.65, which is just decreasing slightly now. With proration, more cars coming into the system and going out, that would have to be adjusted. And according to the figures that I had run, it looked like there would be, with that alone, would be a tax increase of almost 8%.
Yes, ma'am.
Richard, is there any way that we can have a copy of the figures that you've given tonight, that we can look at, a paper copy or computer copy? Everything.
Sure. I started to bring it to a lot of, some of these things that I've given tonight was in my first report.
Right.
But I did not, I'll compile this and give each board member a copy of this.
Well,
you probably have to go back and look at the video tonight to get a better understanding of what I've tried to project and say.
Well, what I usually can do better, from the old school. I can do better if I have the things in front of me on a piece of paper or either in the computer, so that I can just see those and compare them with where we stand or with other things that we get. And then the other question, so you will provide those to us?
Yes, I can work on this. I have a rough draft here that I put together, and I'll be glad to compile something for you. It may be by next week.
That's fine.
Get this done.
Just so I can see them. Then the next thing I wanted to ask, are you basing the salaries and the workload of the individual on the fact that you feel the tax tickets should go out immediately?
They have to, Ms. Perkins, they do.
why do they have to? That's what I don't
Because we
understand.
never get caught up with workload. If you have thousands of cars coming into the system, they have to be billed for the time they own it. All right, let's say this even gets more complicated. You buy a car on, let's say, March 31st. You hate the car, but you own it from March 31st to June 30th. I have to bill you for the car you own, first of all, the car you bought new or newer car you bought. Then I'll have to bill you for the third car you just bought, all in 1 year.
Right, well, what I was trying to find out is that, could those things all be done at one time, like we do now, or what? I think the reason you're saying, you know, they have to be done is because you think that makes it easier, maybe I'm wrong, that it makes it easier for you to stay up with what's happening.
That's the misconception that I believe the board, and no reflection on y'all, but how it's been presented. The misconception that it can be done like we always have done it. That is not the case.
So what, if I bought this car on June 30th, on July the 2nd, I would get a tax ticket?
Well, you'll get it sometime in July.
And I will have
from
to...
the rest of the year.
For the rest of the year?
Basically, 30, 45 days to pay it. Then, let's say you forget to pay it, and I have to send out a delinquent notice. We give you another 30 or 45 days to make the payment, and or let's just say I forget to pay it then I have to know and start taking out an action. So I'm billing it numerous times throughout the year. I'm sending out delinquent notices throughout the year, and then I have to have numerous collection actions throughout the year. It's non-ending.
What would we get in December? Let's say I bought it in June, and you're saying sometime in July I would get a bill that says I have to pay this much taxes through to the end of the year.
Okay.
All right, so when would I have to give you the money for that?
Okay. All right. If you buy a car June 30th, we'll bill you in July. We'll probably be due, and we haven't discussed that, probably around August 5th, August 10th.
So I'm paying ahead of time.
But when it gets down to I'm billing you from June 30th to the end of the year. I'm collecting your taxes basically up front. When it comes around again to January 1st, and you still own that vehicle January 1st, and you decide to keep it for 2016, 2017, 2018, you're going to be billed once a year like you always have been, because you have made no changes in the system. You have not, you're keeping the car you bought on June 3rd.
I understand that, but when would I have to pay up front?
Okay, all right.
In August for all the way to December.
Okay, August to December, you're going to have to pay me in August for the last half of the year.
So,
for the new car.
So, that same thing could not be done at the end of the year?
No localities I've checked with, great or small, do it that way. Everyone tells me there's a problem with billing, multi-billing, supplemental billing is an added bill. Abatements means crediting off one vehicle you have, adding another. There's all kinds of things that have to take place before we can collect your dollars.
Well, I don't know all of the process that you have to go through.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, it's to me the process of having to pay in July for 6 months ahead.
That's what you'll do.
Does not seem to be crooked.
Okay, you're talking about a fair tax. Fair tax is January 1st. You move out of the county June 30th. Yes, you're paying for another half year, but that's the way we tax. No more bills. One bill, it's done. With proration, there's multi-bills if you buy, sell, or trade your car during that year.
Let's say I don't.
If you don't,
I'm trying to get this down so I know.
and many people don't buy, sell, or trade. They keep their same vehicle for 5, 10, 20 years.
My car is 13 years old.
Okay.
That's what I want.
It's not going to affect you.
I know, but it will if I sell my car this year.
If you buy a car with proration, you're going to be billed for your whole car, the amount of time you own it, and whichever year you own it, then sell it,
So
and
you're-
the new car instantly.
So you're saying from January to let's say October.
Okay.
I have my old car.
Right.
And so you would bill me for that at the end of the year?
No.
As we now do?
No. Your old car, January 1st to, let's say, October 1st or October 30th. I have to bill you for the time you own that vehicle.
All right.
All right.
So
Then the new car you just purchased, to give it a year's billing, I have to bill you from whenever you bought the car, October 1st, October 15th, October 30th, to the end of the year. You're on
but you don't go back to the January when I had my old car.
You're on now a new billing cycle.
Okay.
And our office has to keep up with when you bought, sold, and traded.
But you said the next year I would just be paying in December.
Because you would own it January 1st, you made no changes. It'd be like you always have. Get your bill in September,
So it would just...
in December 5th. We're on several different billing cycles. It's not going to be one billing cycle as we know of it today.
Okay, so what you're really saying, now just help me.
Sorry.
What we're really saying is, in order for us to get more money for whatever, it's harder for you to send out that many tax tickets.
Sure it is.
But if you have 2 people in your office, you should be able to do it. Is that correct?
I don't know that I can do it on 2. I'm assuming 2 with larger localities that I've talked to. The ones that have previously been given to you as an example, 27,600 got 1 employee for both offices, 47,000 got 1 for both offices, and we're 94,000. We're 3.5 times larger than 27,000 county, and twice as big as the 47,000. So I'm just estimating that when Mr. Tuck asked me for an estimate of these things. How can you estimate something you don't know?
Well, I think then we can't, there seems to me to be ways that these things can be worked out. I mean, my brain doesn't, rarely ever says I cannot do it.
Ms. Wilkins, I literally, I'm not exaggerating, have spent hundreds of hours researching proration.
Well, that's...
If I felt proration was good for the county, I would say, yes, let's go for it. We can increase revenues. If you're looking to increase revenue, I know y'all don't like to say a tax increase, raise the current rate. If that's what you choose to do, leave it January 1st billing. Even the commissioner said it's a lot more work. It is. It's more work than I can even imagine.
Right, and I understand that, and you've said it many, many times tonight, but what I'm saying is, or what I'm trying to understand is, number 1, will you please send me the numbers you have and your estimates? Number 2, I will try to look at those and see where we are. But number 3 is, what you're saying is, when we start out, you want 2 people to help you start doing this. And you're
Not
not...
to help, but forever.
To do that, okay, to
Yeah,
help you,
please.
but that will help you get through what's there. At least 2, you're saying 2. Okay, so let's say you get into, what is that? Did I do that? I hope not. I don't know, but anyway, what I'm saying is, I just think that, I get what you're saying. It's a lot of work.
It is.
But you've asked for 2 employees, and that's where we'll start. And you have also asked for the fact that, you're saying that this is an estimate. So you write that down when you give me the numbers.
Because we're dealing with the unknown.
Well, certainly for our county.
Right.
We're not necessarily dealing with all the unknown. So to me, I think that anytime you make changes, I don't care what it's for, anytime you make changes, there's always a period of time when you've got to adjust to the changes that come about. And so we're not saying that forever and ever and ever and ever do you have to have 2, or do you need 1 for your office?
Tourism will continue that way.
I hear that, I hear that. But I'm saying, again, just like you don't know exactly what's happening, neither do we. And we can figure that we get started. We have an idea that it's going to take more work, it's going to take more time and effort. Okay, but we also, whenever we start out with something new, we know that there are going to be glitches and changes and things that happen. And so, what we have to do is to weigh, okay, is it going to be really worth our while to do this?
Right.
And so right now, you have to admit you don't know. I have to admit I don't know.
Right.
All we can say is we've looked at other people, but we're all unique. We're all different. And so I think that it doesn't do us any good to really continue to say some of the things that, we've been saying. I understand that you don't want it. You think it's not good for the county. There's 7 of us up here who are going to have to look at it. We have Mark Magruder, we have, wait a minute, what's your name that you do the?
Angie. Mark, Angie, and Paul.
I'm teasing you. But anyway, she knows that. She knows that. But anyway, no, because you've interrupted me a lot of times. I want to interrupt you this time. I want to say that we've got our staff, Mr. Meadows, and 7 of us here. If we get your data and we look at it, then don't you think we have the right, and don't you think we have the ability to make a decision based on what you tell us and what we can find out and what we think is right? So,
I don't want to hurt your feelings, and I'm not here to do that. My integrity is also being questioned tonight, being treasurer for 11.5 years, and all the decisions I've made. And when I say this isn't right for Montgomery County in my standings, I wish that y'all would consider my years of experience and knowledge over the years. Now, when Mark Magruder gets up and speaks in a little while, he'll give you some numbers, and that will maybe open up all our minds of what this may bring, their estimates, even with his.
Well, I don't consider this questioning your integrity, Richard. I've never done that. What I'm asking for is to see the numbers, to see what you're telling us, because we've gotten a lot of information from you tonight.
Yes, you have.
And I would like to see that in print. I don't think that questions your integrity. I think that just says, I want to be sure that of what I'm thinking about.
And I'll get that
and
tip for you.
and the second part is, I think that any time we as the Board of Supervisors enter into any kind of changes, there will be some disagreements about where we stand with all of these things. And so we have, like I said, we have 7 people, we have our staff, and they can help us too.
Sure.
That's not saying that we're discounting what you're saying. In other words, what you're telling me has value from your perspective, that you don't think this is right. Well, we need to hear that from every record. We need to hear that. So, and I think, you know...
But we're going to have to grow government to make this thing happen if y'all decide to go for proration. It cannot happen correctly, and when it boils down to it, you get the end result. You know, he's going to say we're right or we're wrong.
I appreciate all that you said tonight, and I appreciate the information that you've brought. But to tell you the truth, my head is going like this. If I can't see the numbers, those are the kinds of things that I would like to look at. It makes me understand better. So
I didn't have a lot of numbers, but I'll give you what report of what I have tonight.
That's fine. Whatever.
All the board members. So
yes, I want everybody to have it.
If the board, I don't know how you can do it, but if the board wants to sit down as a group and talk to Helen and I, her staff, y'all together, I don't know if that has to be like we're discussing tonight, but I've asked ever since this process began that I want to talk to the board members, and I've had one board member come to my office, sit down and discuss it with me, and the other 6 have not.
I have not been to your office.
Could we do this? I'm
going to say just this, and then I'm finished.
Yes, ma'am.
Do not impugn any of my integrity because I haven't come to your office. I'm getting information from you tonight, and that's what I've asked for. I appreciate everything you've said, and so I think I'll leave it at that, and I'm finished. Okay, thank you.
Okay, if you could hang around a little bit, we're going to have Mark to come up and do his presentation, or whoever's next.
Well, I think...
But I know he's got some questions, but we're going to let them questions come back. Okay, because we can go on to 1 o'clock with this, and so we need to get this...
What presentation are we going to have from our staff?
Yeah, from our staff.
Because I will need to go.
Yeah.
And
Bill wants to do
I've heard this, and I want to hear our staff.
Yeah. Richard, let her do the presentation first, and then if you hang around a little bit, then we have some questions afterwards, if you don't mind, and give you a break too.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Because I'm sorry, Bill, but I'll have to leave after our staff gives us the information.
No problem. I think I want
Thank you.
because I'm looking for an invitation. I didn't get one.
What?
Y'all may have got one, but I didn't get one.
One invitation for what?
Come to this office.
I never got one.
It's up past your bedtime, man.
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
I don't see it.
Here we go.
Okay.
Okay, in case there's any question, I'm not Mark Magruder, but I'm going to start by introduction of Mark tonight with talking a little bit about our time frame. If you want to move forward with an ordinance for proration, there's a time frame that we need to follow in order to meet the advertising requirements and the public hearing schedule. So from where we are now, our first step would be to schedule a public hearing. That would come at your next meeting, October the 13th. That is a Tuesday instead of a Monday because Monday's Columbus Day. Now, the next time frame that we would normally schedule the public hearing would be November the 11th. Okay? November the 11th is a Wednesday. The VACO conference is that Monday and Tuesday, so we normally have the meeting in November on Wednesday. The difference this year is that Wednesday is Veterans Day, and so there may be some of you that have events to attend. There may be other citizens who have events to attend. And so the question for you all will be about your meeting in November, the first one. Do you want to reschedule it from November the 11th, Veterans Day? Do you want to only have one meeting, an alternate meeting, or how would you like to proceed? Because that will affect the date we advertise the citizens for the public hearing.
And in the interest of time, I'd like for us to continue through the presentation, and I have that as a note under my administrator comments tonight that we can talk about that, but we'll get that cleared up before the meeting tonight.
Carol.
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't mean to leave you out, sweetie.
That's just fine. I knew you meant me to.
I did. I really did. Thank you. I know I said Mr. Meadows and the rest of those people. But
I count myself right beside him. It's not a problem.
right. Yeah. Thank you.
The public hearing then, the first meeting, or when you decide to have your meeting in November, would be the public hearing time. Then, at your meeting in December, you normally only have one meeting. That would be the date, the last date, that you could actually approve the ordinance before it would become effective January 1. So that just gives you an overview of some of the time frames and the deadlines you'll need to meet if you want to move forward with this. You can also, as always, schedule additional work sessions prior to your PSA meetings or at another meeting in October. So that's just some background to keep in mind, and Craig will pick up again with, what you want to do with your Veterans Day meeting as the first meeting of the month of November. So with that said, the data analysis work here was done by our finance team, and you all know Angie, and you've mentioned Mark a couple of times, so I think you know him. But we're also very fortunate to have added to our finance team Paul Kaiser. And Paul's sitting on the left-hand side of Angie over there. You may not have met him before, but we are very, very fortunate to have his skills brought to the table as well. So with that said, I'm going to turn the presentation of the staff's data analysis over to Mark Magruder at this time.
Okay, so what I wanted to do to start off tonight, to try and help the board and the public understand proration. There's been a lot of talk about proration. So what we thought we would do was start with our current process, sort of explain how that works, and then go on and explain how proration would work. And then I have some examples to give you some detail on how that would work. All right, so let's start with our current process. The way it currently works, motor vehicle property assessments are based on the vehicles that are owned on January 1 of each year. The value of each vehicle is assessed based on the National Automotive Dealers Association, also known as NADA, valuations for that calendar year. And then each year, that value is reported on the September 1 personal property book. And then taxes are due on those vehicles on December 5th of that year. Now, to give you a comparison, this next slide shows a comparison of our current process to changing over to proration. And so under our current system, the lapse between when a vehicle is purchased
and when that vehicle is sold or when the citizen is taxed on that vehicle under our current system is up to 23 months. Under proration, it would be shortened to 11 months. So for example, if a person purchased a vehicle on January 20th, I picked the 20th because that's the middle of the month, and that would give you a full month's worth of tax on that vehicle. The tax will be paid under the current system on 12/5 of 2016. If we switched over to proration, tax will be due on 12/5 of 2015, which is essentially 12 months sooner than on our current method. If the vehicle is sold, full tax year is paid on 12/5 under our current system, and then a prorated tax will be paid under the proration system. The assessed value of the vehicle under our current system is valued basically a year later. Under proration, it is valued when the vehicle is purchased. The next slide shows 3 separate examples and provides detail on how changing to proration would affect citizens. These are actual personal property records, and I'll just be clear and say that one of these vehicles is owned by Carol and one's owned by me, and so these are our actual records. And so I just
the older one.
So under the first example, let's say a citizen keeps the vehicle all year. And in this instance, we took Carol's vehicle, the 2009 Honda Accord. Under our current system, she would pay $165. Under the prorated system, she would pay $165. There's no change. So for somebody that keeps the same vehicle for the entire year, proration has no impact. In the second example, citizen purchases a higher value vehicle and then disposes of a lower value vehicle. So for example, Carol decides that she wants to buy a new vehicle, and so she owns the 2009 Honda Accord on January 1st. Then on February 1st, she goes out and purchases a brand new vehicle. Under our current system, she would be taxed $165 basically for the older vehicle for the entire year. Under the prorated system, she would be prorated 1 month for the Honda Accord and then 11 months for the Jeep Cherokee in this example. The tax difference would be $283, and the increase would be $283 that she would be required to pay during that year. In the third example, let's say that somebody owns a higher price vehicle and they decide, well, I can't really afford that vehicle. I want to purchase a cheaper vehicle. Same thing would occur. Let's say the person owns the 2015 Jeep on January 1st. They decide to sell that vehicle and acquire the lower priced Honda Accord. Again, under our current system, they would have to pay $473 for the entire year for the Jeep, even though they only owned it 1 month. Under proration, they would pay 1 month for the Jeep and then 11 months for the Honda Accord. The decrease in the amount tax paid would be $283. So in either situation, depending upon what transaction would occur, you would have either an increase or decrease depending upon what happened during the year. So how does proration actually affect our revenues? Each year, the county will receive 1 year's worth of growth in assessed values when the personal property book is generated. In addition to this growth, in the first year that you switch to proration, the growth that was previously delayed until the next year is recognized in the current year. This results in additional growth in the first year. So essentially what is happening here is the county would get a full year of normal growth, plus in the first year, and then only in the first year, you would get an additional prorated year's worth of growth. Again, this is only going to happen in the first year. After the first year of proration, all your personal property tax records will be current, and then you will just receive a 1 year's worth of growth every single year on after. Talk about the methodology. The data from the current personal property book and the prorated personal property book test were used as the basis of our analysis. The data was analyzed to estimate the additional revenue that may occur in the first year due to changing to proration. We have no history on this new method, so it is difficult to know what the impact in the out years is going to be because we don't know what the new growth trend is going to look like. But given this limited data history on proration, the numbers I'm going to tell you about are estimates as far as what we think could happen. Probably of all the individual revenue categories that we try to estimate, estimating personal property motor vehicles is probably the most difficult. And this slide that I have here shows the percentage change in growth in motor vehicle assessed values since fiscal year 98. And you can see there's no definitive trend here. The numbers are kind of all over the place, which makes, even under our current system, very difficult for us to predict what the future growth pattern is going to be. As requested by the Board of Supervisors, the Commissioner of Revenue provided data on assessed values assuming proration as of January 1, 2015. This data was prepared on a calendar year basis. I'm going to give you an estimate of what I think we are looking at as far as revenue growth based on proration. My numbers are going to be different than what the Commissioner provided, and the reason for that is the Commissioner's job is to assess the vehicles. The county has a finance department that puts together the budget, and we estimate how much revenue is going to be generated based on that. So her numbers are prepared on a calendar year basis. For the budget, our numbers are prepared on a fiscal year basis. I've already gotten growth built into our revenue estimates, so I have to adjust for those numbers based on what I've already got programmed in the budget. And then I have to apply a collection rate to that based on how well we actually collect those revenues. So the numbers I'm going to provide are going to be slightly different than what you've seen from the Commissioner's office. It is estimated the county would receive $1 million in new revenue if proration had begun on January 1st, 2015. This would be an 8.35% increase in our fiscal year 16 revenue. Again, this first year of proration results in an additional revenue added to the base, and that's only going to occur in the first year because you're getting that up-to-date record where you're getting that prorated year at the same time that you're normally getting another year's worth of growth. After the first year, the county would have a new growth trend, which we can't estimate because we don't know what that's going to look like. Ongoing growth will depend on a variety of factors, including changes in assessed values, buying patterns, and the market itself. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Craig, and he can take it from here.
Thank you, Mark. I do appreciate staff's efforts in pulling this information together. Again, I want to emphasize that as staff looked at these numbers, their estimates, we took what the Commissioner had done, refined those based on calendar year versus fiscal year, and tried to project our best estimate as to what proration could possibly generate in additional revenues. I do want to make it clear that the staff does not have a position on whether proration is something the county should move forward with or not. That's a policy decision of this board. What we were tasked with was taking a look at what the Commissioner had put together and putting some tests to it, and it does look like that it would generate additional revenue. Approximately, if it had been in place this year, approximately $1 million in additional revenue. Beyond that, as Mark showed in one of the slides, in Montgomery County, there's not been a consistent pattern for personal property taxes, and that's been due to a variety of factors. We've been through a recession over the last couple of years. We have several very large auto dealers here, and it's tough to predict, but I'll also say we're not unique in that either. There's a lot of other counties that have similar challenges. But we wanted to share this information with you this evening, and hopefully that'll be helpful as you continue to debate the issue.
Can I ask a question about the revenue? Well, the other folks have not had a chance to ask questions. I'll sit quiet.
Okay, we'll go with is anything on this side first.
To Craig?
Yeah, about Mark's report or to Craig or whatever.
Can I ask
Okay.
just a super quick question?
Okay.
Perhaps just a clarification about the estimated revenue. So if it was adjusted for fiscal year, but it was implemented according to this model on January 1st, it's only half of a fiscal year, correct? So if it were implemented over the course of a full fiscal year, it would be, in theory, double this, or is that no?
I don't think so. You want to clarify that?
That's all right.
I see lots of movement. Carol got there first.
That's
She was a little slow this evening, but what Mark's number did was adjust everything, so what you're looking at is 12 months in a fiscal year.
Okay.
So it would be $1 million to the base. Now, let's assume you spent the $1 million. And we started in fiscal year 16, you spent the $1 million. Then the part we don't know is how much increase would be in that second year.
Yes, that's clear. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Tuck.
Well, I'm trying to think of how to properly phrase the question, and I want to make sure I'm understanding things, and the hour is late. We're going to get that first boost because we're getting that first year, and that is. Are you saying that is an additional $1 million? And is that the number that we're seeing there? That's the initial. Is that just the initial boost? Or is that an evaluation of that 1 year? Do you see the question I'm asking?
It's total estimated revenue for the year. Is that correct? Including the boost.
So this is including the boost. So we would not expect $1 million the following year if everything stayed the same. The growth, I know that you can't predict that kind of thing because there may be a great sale on cars and they go up, or there may be a terrible sale on cars and all the prices go up. But if it stayed the exact same, may I ask, what would we be looking at on year 2? If everything stayed the same, year 2, what will we be looking at? Is that a fair question of the staff as far as numbers?
We don't know.
Even if it stayed the same. Do you see what I'm saying? The car sales stayed the same.
Mm-hmm.
The growth stayed the same as the previous year.
It would definitely be less than $1 million.
It would
because
be less.
you wouldn't have that
less
boost.
minus what you paid extra for people to do
And
the work.
I'm getting there because this is right now gross and we're not talking net. And so what I'm trying to think is, all right, if it stayed at $1 million, is there a way that we can, just using 1 year as kind of a look-see, a model almost, to go by? And so then are we going to be looking at $600,000 if things stayed the exact same?
Would be
5?
I would be afraid to venture a guess.
But is there a way we could ask to look at the projections, and if we said, I was trying to think of a conservative year, and it looks like maybe 2016 is a conservative year on that basis. I mean, it's not as catastrophic as it looks like 2010. If we said that was 2017, is there a way that we can look at those numbers to get a better feel for things? Do you see what my question is?
Projected out another year.
Projected out another year on that second year, so I know what I'm looking at with the same revenue. And I'm not saying the staff is predicting that revenue. Okay, I'm not putting you all in that place. I'm just to help me understand things better.
I think the point is to go back to what Mark said previously, was the fact that we don't have enough history in anything to really be able to do any more than look forward and try and guess what the next percentage would be. So I'm looking over here at the finance team to see if they have anything different to say, and
We don't even agree with each other on that part.
they can't even agree with how high it might be. And I think you have to keep in mind that when you have a 20-year history like you have there or whatever, you've got something to work with, but look how volatile that is anyway. So you build your base in the first year, and from what Mark has gleaned from that in the analytical work, there's about $1 million to be had with that. Now, what your question is, if I'm understanding, is how much do we get to add year after year on top of that?
Not year. I'm just wanting to know, not add. I'm just wanting to know year 2. We don't get that bonus that we get the first year, right?
It's in the base. You'll already have that. It's
in
adjusted
there.
for everything in the base. You're
It
not
stays
getting
in
that.
there.
You're not losing that in the second year.
So we're going to be set with the $1 million base. It's not going, so the next year, I'm not going to be dealing
And
with
the caveat I will
600,000.
say is also estimate. That's what we estimate.
And I understand, it's like looking and trying to figure out what's going to happen 2 years from now.
It's like trying to predict the stock market.
Yes, but I'm trying to make sure I understand it, so that base is not going to go down, but we don't know what the future might bring. But we would still be at $1 million to the good.
Unless there's overall negative
That's
growth in the
exactly
county.
right.
If
That's
there's overall
exactly
negative
right.
growth, or
Right.
If there's
Yeah.
a 2010 year
yeah,
or a
then it's going to
2008
go down. But that's the only reason it would go down.
Okay, all right, thank
Well,
you.
Let me ask you a question.
Okay, go
if I may. Why would we not go with proration for another year for them to get us some analysis that we can look forward to being correct, and from whoever is looking at it?
Well,
I don't know what the big deal is on trying to jump it out there like a rabbit and see if you can shoot it.
The longer you study it in terms of going forward, the closer you can probably make estimates, but there's still going to be estimates. There's never going to be a situation where we come in and say, we've looked at this for 1.5 years, 2 years now, we know exactly what it'll never happen, because you could go from a year like fiscal year 07 to a year like fiscal year 08.
But we need to know those things.
Well, I don't know how.
We need to know if it's going to, if half of them up there is going to be in the downslide, and we also need to know if half of them up there is going to be in the upside. Because if we can't know that, then we better leave it alone.
But that's forecasting. That doesn't have anything to do with that. That's forecasting economic growth. I mean, you know, if you look at what happened there, I mean, 8, 9, 10. I mean, that's the Great Recession. 3, 4, 5. That's the midst of the crash after 9/11.
Well, what are you going to do with 6? It's already out there. That's something that we just throw away, and it's never going to be as much as what those others are.
Well, and I guess part of the point of this slide is this is what you currently have now. I mean, there's that with it, and so you're going to have that with any method you have. Any method you choose. Okay, I'm going to assume we're done with the slides here, and there'll be more discussion at a later time, perhaps.
Thank you for the written, my statement, and I'll get it. I'm sorry I had to leave, but I appreciate it, Carol.
I'm telling you, the finance team did all the work. I'm just showing the slides. That's my job to do.
Mr. Chair,
I was going to ask them to have any questions.
Yeah, I have,
Okay.
questions, comments.
Okay.
All right, the first thing I want to know, maybe staff could help us with, I keep hearing this thing about why can't we send the tax bill out like at the end of the year versus every month? Is there some kind of legal thing in the state of Virginia in the code about when you can send a tax bill out if you're doing proration? Because I don't know.
That may be the question for the commissioner, I think, but this model that we had based on the commissioner's information was based on the bills going out December the 5th, and the tax on the bills is prorated. So instead of each vehicle getting a bill, now, I'm wrong, somebody here in the back tell me, the individual would get a bill, and the year that I bought, that I had my 2009 Honda, the bill would show my value was prorated for that amount. Then I bought a new vehicle, and for the months I have that vehicle, the value is prorated. And then I'm taxed on the total of what those two values are.
And we get one bill in December.
That's my understanding. Is that correct, Mr. Commissioner?
So you're not sending bills out like as soon as like someone buys a car, they're going to get a bill 5 days later? Because that's what I kept hearing in parts of this discussion.
You're going to get Helen up here so she can answer that.
I believe is something
Can
the
she answer
commissioner
that?
needs to address.
Can you come and answer?
Yeah, come answer that.
Because I need to get this clear in my mind. Because I'm one of those people that bought a car in July of 2012 and didn't pay, and I kept thinking how I needed to be paying, because to me that's a fair way to do it, but that's...
We would have the regular September book, just like we always do. If you buy a car during the year, it's going to be a prorated amount for the one you sell. It's going to be a prorated amount for the one you buy. Anything after the September book, which we'll cut off in August, will be supplements and abatements. And we have those anyway.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, so that part makes sense. Well, I guess what I want to clear up here, and you guys have heard me address this before, the fact is that we are very limited in the way that we can raise revenue. That's the first fact, because of the General Assembly. So we are given the two different ways that we can do this. And so we asked the commissioner to look at it. It wasn't like she just came up with this by herself. Now, we've got information from the commissioner. Our staff has given us information, and Richard has come forward to talk about the impact on his office, which I think it's good that we have all this together. But I think everyone here is here because we want to serve all our citizens in a fair and equal way, and also be able to provide the services that we need to provide, which are going to be increased in the coming years with the growth at Virginia Tech, the projected growth. And I think also we need to remember that when we're looking at the county population, we need to be looking at how many of those are actual students at Tech that are counted in the whole county but actually have their cars registered elsewhere. So when you really look at it, you sort of need to look at the whole picture. And when you're talking about taxes, I was just sitting here thinking about it, and like when you buy anything, you pay the tax when you buy it. Let's think about it. And what happens if, as Supervisor Gabriel and I had asked, what happens when you buy a house? I guess what I'm saying is we were trying to look at the fairness of it, and we were trying to look at a way that maybe we could bring some revenue into the county, but we had to have the facts before we could make our decision. And I think all this controversy and some of the things that have been said tonight about people's offices and things, that's not really what this was about. What this was about was to try to see if we could raise some revenue, because we're very strapped in ways that we can raise revenue. It's not trying to be unfair to Richard or unfair to you or unfair to citizens. And I just felt compelled that I needed to state that tonight, and I want to thank both you and Richard and the staff for all that they've done. I think it's an important topic, and it's not the first time it's come up. I've been on the board for 20 years, and at various times during that time, we have asked about it, but we just never pursued it as a board to ask a commissioner to really look at it.
I remember those times.
And so I just wanted to straighten that out for everyone. Thank you.
And I just want to make this clear. You got a question before you leave?
No, thank you.
Okay.
I have one question about the way you're sending out, the way you're talking about sending out the bills once a year. What other county does it that way? Because we've heard that
they all do it based on their books. The ones that have a lot have early deadlines, like Roanoke County has a May 1st deadline, or maybe it's June 1st, but it's a spring of the year deadline. And then they do all of those supplementals and abatements all year long.
All right, so
Now, if we were doing it right now, and in 2016, a car comes on the DMV record that is dated for 2015, then I would go back and supplement it based on the date of purchase for the 2015 book.
So are you going to, I mean, I want to make sure I'm hearing this right. There are not going to be 400 to 500 notices going out of your office every single day, or out of,
I hope not. I certainly hope not. I'm not planning on that.
And because I mean, we've heard a lot, and I'm just trying, and I'm trying to be as objective in looking at things.
Right, right.
So you're saying that once a year, the majority of the notices, when you say majority, we're talking 90% of them are going out in December?
Well, I would say 90. I would say maybe 80.
Okay.
Just to be safe.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you.
And you're not going to hold me to the 80.
No,
because
it's
I'm
coming
never
in at
done.
78.5, but no,
We'll be okay?
I'm looking for estimates and to get a better idea to make a good decision.
And one more question. I don't know who can help me with this question. Munis. Okay, I'm familiar with Munis from way back when it was first put in, and we had a lot of trouble in the previous treasurer's office. But here's my question. Is Munis, the system that we paid all this money for, is it set up to handle this now, or do other things have to be added?
On my side of the hall, it's doing it. That's what she used, Munis, with purchase dates and liability dates.
Okay.
It did it all on its own. Well, not on its own, you know what I mean.
Yeah. Input, output, yeah.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
And that's all I think.
Just to clarify one thing, the system we're talking about is one bill annually.
One field entry note.
Yeah, I mean, just like, it could be partially prorated on this one and that one, and then one total, one ticket.
Yes, it can be on one ticket.
Okay.
Yes. If one ticket, if it's titled the same way.
Okay.
If you
Well, there's going to be a few variables
Yeah.
in there, because some's going to buy cars in November and October, and your cutoff date is August, right? So there's going to be some variables in there, but the majority is going to be.
But the way it's titled makes a difference as to whether there's one ticket or two.
Okay.
Okay?
And I've got something else too. And this applies to not just like citizens, but business and commercial vehicles also.
Right.
So we have that out. Okay.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
So it sounds like to me that the bulk of the work is going to be done in your spot, your place, and they're going to be collecting taxes and on the other side.
Because we make the abatements and we do the supplementals.
Okay.
He'll print the tickets. Okay?
Any other questions for Helen? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I guess what we're looking for tonight as a result of this item under work session is there still interest from the board in considering this as we move forward? If the answer to that's yes, we need to schedule a public hearing. We'll call for a public hearing on October the 13th. Is that correct, Carol? I've closed my presentation, but I can't see that slide. Yeah, schedule a public
We would
hearing.
normally have a resolution at your next meeting that would schedule the public hearing and for whatever date that meeting is in November.
Absolutely, and I just want to make clear to everybody that that's not to vote on proration. It's to schedule a
Just to
public
schedule a public
hearing
hearing only, right.
to have discussion in November with the public about whether proration should move forward or not.
But we would have that information from the treasurer's office by then. I mean, not by then, but before then we could look at
Before the November,
everything.
I would assume so for sure by the November public hearing date if that's what they decide to do. Is that? Yes, sir.
We'll get this as soon as they can.
Thank you.
And if passed, when does it start?
January 1, 2016.
So next
To be effective with the new calendar year.
How many vehicles you bought this year?
Nothing before, nothing.
Does not count.
That's correct.
They just get you the regular amount and regular time on that one.
Would it be possible to maybe meet with some of the finance staff? I know maybe not all of us together, but just to kind of go over some of the, making sure that we understand everything with that, maybe over a lunch or something along those lines. Is that, I'm not saying by 7 of us, but I'm saying maybe that may be too much.
I would
Okay.
prefer that if there's discussions with staff, it be with the entire
Okay.
board, and,
Yeah,
and
that's
that
right.
could be done the night, we could hold a work session the night of the public hearing, if that's something the board wanted to do.
I'm not.
It's just that
Yeah, I may
everybody
have- I
hears
may
the
have a
same
few-
thing.
Right, and
Yeah.
I may just have a few questions, and I'll just try to follow
Yeah.
up with you or
Sure.
That's what I was going to suggest. If any of you all, as you go through this, you think of individual questions, if you'll forward them to Craig,
send
and
them
we'll
to me,
see
I'll
how we
get 'em.
can best answer those. for you.
Absolutely.
Is that, now, did you get your question answered? What
I
we
didn't
gonna say?
know, we just need an up or down to move
Okay.
forward with
Up or down
having
to
on
move
the October
forward.
13th agenda, scheduling
consensus.
public.
Yeah, put that on.
Okay, we
there.
got
I
one.
have no problem with putting it up on for the public hearing. I haven't
Yeah.
taken a position.
Yeah.
There's a lot to
Absolutely.
digest.
Okay.
Absolutely.
What you got over here? We got
Yeah,
three?
put it on.
Yeah, we're good.
All right,
We're
thank
good.
you.
Thank you, finance staff, and the overtime will be on the check.
Yeah, right.
Just don't look too closely forward.
I'm afraid I'm gonna be buying a lunch maybe.
Yeah. Okay, we need a motion to go out of. No, we got one other item on
And
here.
I'll be very brief with this
Okay.
one. We initially had this on an earlier agenda, and due to not being able to get a letter from Dr. Wilson at Tech until the end of the week, we didn't add it.
Revenue sharing.
This is something that I had mentioned casually to, I believe I mentioned it to the entire board previously. Virginia Tech is looking to do some pretty significant road work on campus, and they have been talking with Dan Brew and VDOT about the possibility of using revenue sharing funding to do that. And what Tech has proposed is they would like to partner with the county to be able to utilize our 10 million ceiling per locality. We very rarely come close to that. Matter of fact, the only thing we have out there right now is the Price's Fork project. This would be with the understanding that if we had a priority project, that they would not be able to use that. It doesn't cost us anything. It's a big gesture of goodwill to work with Tech in this way. And I would certainly recommend, what we're looking for on this item is just consensus from the board to report back to Virginia Tech that we would be willing to move forward in working with them on this. We will formalize it with an agreement that we'd bring back to make sure everybody's okay with, but
When is that to be initiated?
What about October?
well, they're looking at starting in July. They're going to start design in July 2016. Their initial request probably would be a funding request and $5 million in revenue sharing for the $10 million project. I think the reason they've asked us to give consensus fairly early is they've got to take this back. They can't take the project to their Board of Visitors until they know that they've got the revenue possibility in place.
I read October in the letter. Didn't you read October?
That's what the letter said. They would
Yeah.
like to hear something by October.
Yeah, that's
I
correct.
think there's a board meeting later in October.
And the thing about it, I'd like to add that it doesn't take anything away from county roads, our projects, or anything.
Well,
Yeah.
in fact, I don't know whether we're going to have enough. It wouldn't be much, but whatever little we may want to have.
And that was the understanding. If,
Yeah.
for example, if we have $500,000 that we want to request, then Tech understands the most they could piggyback on us with would be 9.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Dr. Wilson was very understanding of that. I don't really see a downside to this. As the board chair pointed out, and I appreciate you saying that, is it doesn't take anything away from any projects in the county. If we were to need the entire 10 million for a project, then Tech would have to take a year off from their project.
We never been down one.
No, that's...
I think this is, I'm in support. I just had a quick question. You might not even know the answer. What exactly would this 10 million fund? Because
It's the western perimeter.
Yeah,
road. And
it's not going to build the whole thing.
No,
so.
it would be a what they've suggested is it would be a multi-year partnership. So if they were able to get 10 million in 1 year, then they would request it the next year. And that's the other thing I shared with Dr. Wilson is, we can say we're agreeing to partner with you, but again, if a giant company came to town and we needed some of the revenue sharing money, they understand that they would only get what we're not using.
Okay. If we could get that maybe in writing, that would be great.
Absolutely.
That understanding exists, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it would go for many years? I mean, how many years?
Now, the project that they're looking at right now is a $34 million project, so at most it would go 4 to 6 years probably.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. We got it. Okay, got consensus.
I will pass that along, and I'm sure they'll be very appreciative of that.
I think we can go ahead and release the deputy. I don't think the crowd looks too dangerous to me, and it's late. And you let Ed go.
Yeah, Ed, you can if you want to stay, fine. But we know you've been out, and but if you want to go, we probably got it covered.
So bye.
Okay. Okay, need a motion to go out of work session.
So moved. Second, third, fourth.
Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Well, next item, old business, subject A, agreement boundary line adjustment between the town of Christiansburg and Montgomery County.
Move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
6 ayes.
New business, subject A, amend county physical policies.
And Mr. Chair, we discussed this in a work session at the last board meeting. This is the information that Courtney Rogers from Davenport brought forward. And it is staff's recommendation that we move forward with the amendment of those policies as they were presented.
Move approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
6 ayes.
This thing, even my iPad's got tired.
Yeah,
Well,
who wants to
Okay,
like a
subject-
report disappears?
Subject B, Economic Development Authority 2011 bond refinancing.
Mr. Chair, again, this is an item that we presented last board meeting under work session. This is the recommendation, or this is the request that's been made to refinance the funds for the Economic Development Authority related to the Technology Manufacturing Building. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I believe it was an estimated net savings of about $50,000 a year. Is that?
That's significant savings.
Yes, sir.
Move
And it's-
approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Subject C, Fire Prevention Week. Hear the beep where you sleep, October 4th through the 10th, 2015.
A motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
6 ayes.
County Attorney's Report.
No report.
County Administrator's Report.
I hate to do this, but I have a couple of items, as I always do. First off, we did make a note in your agenda packets that legislative priorities are coming up. So We'll need to have a discussion, probably a work session at one of the October meetings about setting our legislative priorities for the upcoming calendar year. We need to have those so that we can take them to VACO for the meeting in November. Okay, there was a tab. Like I said, I lost my agenda.
Yeah, there's a tab.
The tab that's in your packet has the legislative priorities from this past year. Mainly wanted to mention that tonight to get you thinking about those, and we will have a work session on that at an upcoming meeting. Carol did mention earlier in the presentation about the first November meeting. Normally, the first meeting of November would be November 9th. Several of us will be at VACO and won't be coming back until the afternoon or early evening of the 10th. Traditionally, we've scheduled the meeting, as Carol said, for the next day on Wednesday. That's Veterans Day. So the two suggestions I'd like to throw out is we could either have the meeting on Thursday, which is the 12th, or you could consider having one meeting in November on Monday the 16th. Let me back up. There will be two board meetings in November. We already have a joint meeting with the school board scheduled for Monday, November 30th. If needed, we could have any business items either before that meeting or after that meeting if we needed to do that, if you wanted to go with the 16th or the 20th. Otherwise, we'll be looking at if you wanted to do a meeting on Thursday the 12th, and then the second meeting of the month would be as scheduled on Monday the 23rd. So
I think it's, in my opinion, I think it's going to depend. You guys know what items that's in the pipeline to come. And if you feel that we need those two meetings so we don't end up with something like this, and I know you want a consensus on the date now, but I mean, we don't all know what's in the pipeline that's coming. And I think y'all would probably agree to something like that. Yeah.
Joint with the school board.
Well, when we have school board, okay, when we have joint with school board, we don't talk about county business and county stuff like this.
I mean, we would have the opportunity if we schedule something for the 16th. We could always add, couldn't we add another meeting on the 30th?
You could add another meeting.
I'm sorry, the 23rd.
We could. The challenge, and from a scheduling perspective, and I certainly understand what Mr. Brown said, the challenge is as we start working with planning and other areas with things that are coming forth from other departments, and we need to start thinking out as far as scheduling public hearings. We need to know fairly soon when that first November meeting's going to be.
Yeah, I'm saying like if we were to schedule the 16th and
Sure.
plan to have one meeting in November,
and if we
could add a second meeting later in that month.
Yes, you could.
If our agenda got too full.
Yes, you could.
Yeah, that's a
So
good idea.
that would be my preference, I think.
Yeah, I think that's good.
So you'd like to have the 16th?
16th.
So we'll have the 16th as the regular meeting, the 30th is the joint meeting, and we'll keep the 23rd in reserve, knowing if we needed to.
Yeah, I think I would trust the chair and vice chair to maybe let us know ahead of time, and then at the 16th would there be action, or we would just notify the public at our meeting that
We actually have to take a formal action to amend our agenda. We need to do that anyway for the December meeting. So we wanted to try to get direction. So we'll bring that back to the board.
That's fine.
That's okay with everybody? Yeah. That's good. Everybody's good.
We'll move forward with that. Just briefly, it was discussed several times earlier in the meeting. I have been in conversation with the folks in Roanoke County regarding the resolution that they have recently adopted about the pipeline project. Also waiting to hear, to see if we hear anything back from MVP about them visiting us for an upcoming meeting, but we'll keep you in the queue on that.
Can I ask a question on that? What about the question that the lady had it written down here somewhere about the noise and the lights or any of that? Is that anything that we need to look at? Ordinances?
At this point in time, we don't even know. We don't have any information as to where the station may. There's general speculation, but nothing concrete. But as those become firmer plans, we'll definitely follow up on that. I did want to mention just briefly that I sent a letter back on August 26th to Senators Warner and Kane and Representative Griffith about funding for the home funding, which we utilize quite a bit. And as soon as that letter went out, within the next day or so, I received a call from Congressman Griffith's office and Senator Kane's office expressing their concerns over that as well. And I just wanted to publicly thank those two offices for quickly seeing that that's a concern that's in the upcoming continuing resolution bill, but they did respond to that quickly. And Mr. Chair, that's all I have.
Supervisor Gable.
Just one brief thing is that I think now that this board has presided over one of the largest expansions in the power of the county with our annexation from the town of Christiansburg, we should refer to ourselves as the conquerors. So, that's all.
Mr. Green.
Oh, Lord.
Mr. King.
I just want to thank Vicki for hanging in here with us tonight. That's all.
Ms. Biggs.
Just three things. I'll make them short. I went to the chamber meeting for Bill last week, and they just wanted you guys, and I know you already know this, but the passenger rail, there are 3 sites that are being considered, one in Radford at the old Foundry site, and then 2 in Christiansburg around where the rail goes, where the rec center is. And they're 2 different sites, but I guess they're going to decide by December. And then the second thing is that Mr. King and I attended the Employee Service Award lunch, which was very, very good. And we found out that the 59 employees there represented 781 years of service. And so it was a very nice event.
Thank you.
And then the only other thing I wanted to report was Save the Next Girl. I was able to attend the Christiansburg High School Club's reception that they gave to Jill and Dan Harrington, and I actually got to meet Jill and Dan Harrington, and it was very moving. And that group of girls over there, they're doing a really good job with that club. And that's all.
And if I can just add to that, I don't know if any of you had the opportunity to see 48 Hours on CBS on Saturday night.
Yeah.
They had a lot of coverage of the Save the Next Girl effort and whatnot. It was a very good report.
Mr. Tiller.
One thing, and that is when we're thinking about legislative issues that we might take up, you may recall I brought it up at a PSA meeting about the PSA providing or the county providing, if things change, it becomes a department, providing internet services to the areas in the county that are not well served. This would be a great opportunity as we're going through the joinder process. The trenches are open. We could put fiber optics in, and as we see things progress in our schools, they're coming home with tablets. They need internet access, and some of the areas and some of the poorest areas of our county have no internet access. Out in Toronto, out in the more mountainous sections, out in Mount Tabor. And so when we're looking at legislative agendas, I would ask each one of you to give serious consideration to adding that to our request.
That's it. I'll say mine the next week. We're adjourned.